the fact that tonight we're talking about the minor arcana of the tarot, and specifically we're talking about the suit of cups. And we have an expert on cups here tonight, namely Jordan Hoggard, who is going to carry the ball for the evening for us. So Jordan, I've made you co-host. You can share your screen if you want to.
Excellent.
And you should go for it.
All right, thank you so much. Welcome everybody on the YouTube audience as well here in the panel. I have a presentation for cups presented tonight. Pull that up on the screen here. So to me, tarot and the cups, the Grail journey of self. I start off with this image. To me, it was a photograph I took in 2005 at my glass table on the porch by my garden with a walking path that I had created. But it was just one of those full cups places, and not just the dahlia and the celosia in the cup in the middle of the glass. The dark of the path just went right into the light of the clouds. And there was just such a connection. And then the dark of the celosia outside came into the light of the table. So this is almost a yin-yang type of painting and our photograph. And I found this to be just a nice way to set the tone to start the cups.
Yeah, it is a really
it's called,
cool photograph.
Thank you. It's called Reflections. So let's start out with a little bit of about the structure of the tarot. Then we'll move to the suit of cups and the minor arcana. And the tarot is comprised of 78 cards, 22 major arcana cards, and 56 minor arcana cards. The minor arcana are divided into 4 suits that represent the 4 elements: fire, water, air, and earth. These 4 suits are also attributed to the 4 psychological functions. And you can see those relationships of the 4 psychological function if you take a look at Skip's website and see Samantha Wright's wonderful presentation for wands last week. She focused on that, and there's a lot of great information there. So majors and minors, it came to me this morning, well, what's an arcana? Does everyone know that? And so what?
Jordan, let me ask you to clarify one thing here.
Yes.
You identified the 4 elements, and most people who have studied chemistry have no idea what you're talking about when you start talking about air, water.
Excellent. Let me go back.
So would you please explicate on the 4 elements and where that came from?
Certainly. So the minor arcana divided into 4 suits, which are the wands, the suit of cups, the suit of swords, and the suit of pentacles. Wands are typically attributed to a fire or energetic structure. Cups, as you would imagine, that can be filled, are an emotional or water connection. Swords are then about thinking, thoughts, air, the element air. And then pentacles, the 4th suit of the minor arcana, are solid things you can touch, corporeal, of the body, earthly. So they represent the earth. I appreciate that.
Wait a minute, why are these things called elements? These are not elements, but
it links them to nature and to also how we can visually view our own nature psychologically. So that if I'm
historically, this evolved long before chemistry is what I'm trying to get at. And the point I'm trying to make for anybody that's new to this idea, the elements in the tarot are elements in the psyche. They're not physical elements in chemistry. This is not the periodic table.
That's a really good point.
Right. And so the point is that in psychological development over the last 2,000 years, but let's say the first 1,500 years of the Christian tradition, they had psychology developing through religions and through things like the tarot, and they referred to these generic ideas as elements. But by elements, we're not talking about the periodic table and chemistry per se.
And that's a wonderful distinction, because then fire is more of an how is your energy? If I run a simple question, how is your energy psychologically with fire, with water? How is your flow inside? How are your feeling? With air, literally, how's your breathing? And your thoughts also, how do those keep you aspirated or inspired or oxygenated, literally, internally? And then earth, how solid is your stance? And with earth, I would actually then refer back to all four with four particular questions of how do you stand on the ground? How do you extend to the sides? How do you open and close within? And how do you reach to the sky? And how do you reach to the depths? So yes, definitely not the periodic table of elements, and looking at your own inner nature as to the attributions of these elements within you.
Okay, thank you. I just didn't want you to get too far down the road before we explain this to the listening audience. So go ahead.
No, that's a great distinction. I'm glad you pulled back into that. So it's interesting, the word arcana means secrets or mysteries. So the major arcana are your big mysteries, also known as archetypes. And the minor arcana are little mysteries, also known as day-to-day things that you can really get your teeth into. So each major arcana image in the tarot deck will play the character of one of these archetypes, in that it contains an archetype's mystery. Each minor arcana then serves to enlighten our psychological navigation through life and through specific paths in the process of individuation. And individuation to me is coming to just continually experience the fullness of self and the state of your psychic development or psychological development at any given point. It's somewhat synonymous with the word psychosynthesis and psychology, but today I'm just going to stick with the word individuation and not run down that path, because they are a little different, but I think it'd be outside the focus tonight. So the personal psychological development in the natural world comes through our life, through us. And how long does individuation last? A question a lot of people ask. Well, it's lifelong, pretty much. So we are continually evolving as we grow, as we learn, as we experience pain, pleasure, insight, grief. All these things will move the mind, so to speak, and make influence in your inner world. The minor arcana are also called pips. And a pip is basically a small, hard seed in a fruit. So think about an almond. The nut we eat actually forms in a soft body of fruit. It almost looks a little like an apricot. You peel off the fruit and you eat the almond. Cashew nuts, on the other hand, they form outside of a fruit. So this inner and outer nut, so to speak, is an interesting growth pattern in nature to me that runs a line to how we grow. We grow by influence from outside, like a cashew nut that you can see occurring. We grow hidden within from influences that drive our psyche. And to me, there's a beauty in all of us being similar and all of us being different. And I believe Croce in the 14th century said, if man were not, and man or woman, so when I say man, it's just his 14th century verbiage. If man were not similar, man could not discern man from beast. But if man were not dissimilar, man could not discern man from man. And to me, I like four particular words with that, and it's all similar, each unique. Each of us has that beauty. So in the tarot, the character of fire plays the energy and passion and sexuality in the minor arcana and the little mystery of the wands, as we saw in Samantha's presentation last week. The cups play the little mystery of inner water with emotions and flow in and of your life. Swords will play the little mystery of air with thoughts and thinking and logic. And pentacles play the little mystery of earth and solid things you can see and touch. Before we get to our primary focus of the cups today, an example of this transformation could be, how would a wand transform to become a pentacle? Without going into the whole process, let's lay down a simplified example of energy turning solid. Money is simply energy that has been made solid. It is something that has been capitalized upon because of the relationships it's been put into, the energy that has been put into. Magma in the earth is solid earth that has been resurrected into the living earth of lava. It erupts and it makes more solid ground as it cools. So the earth increases its own lands from within, just like our psyche does from within in our world as well. So in that sense, I can think of a volcano as a cup, a vessel that purifies stone and earth and water inside with fire, and then pours living earth to build new lands out here from within. I hope we'll see that as we progress through the cups today. And I find that there's value that can be attributed to this process as it goes both directions in the two examples above. Money coming from energy, and then lava turning to land. So it's both of them going solid to energy, solid to energy. And that's also one of the definitions of light, as it has matter and wave. So the suit of cups. Let's take a short quest to journey through the suit of cups. Let's discover some inner treasure as we learn about the cards and images in the cups. Let's let the cups lead by example to get to know them and maybe even ourselves a little further. We'll go ace through 10, then into the court cards. And since the tarot is a psychological tool, I renamed the court cards in my book, Tarot in the Land of Mysterium. I call them the royal court and your royal court, as I feel they are cards about your higher self. So I ask you to keep that in mind with the cups today, once we get to your royal court, and see if that resonates with you. So we'll begin with the Ace of Cups. Out of nowhere, from the right. Well, the right in the cards is conscious, the left is unconscious. But out of nowhere on the right, this Ace of Cups comes in. Some people have asked, what is the W? And I was reading this morning and I found something that seemed to strike home, that actually if you turn the card upside down, it's an M, which is Mary Magdalene and the royal bloodline that then spills out into the world. So I'm not sure yet if it is an M upside down or a W, but there's a little piece of food for thought to chew on. But this Ace of Cups, as we start on the cups, this is the first instance in the process of you becoming aware of your emotional world. This is you flow outward. You're no longer only receiving stimuli, you actually express things within or outside of you. Jumping from there, and I apologize if you hear my dog begin snoring. So moving to the Two of Cups.
Before we move away, I want to make one comment here. And
I wanted to make a comment too.
Definitely. Let's go.
Excuse me, but I'm going to have to make a pun here and say that the Mary Magdalene thing does hold water for me, because not only does, obviously the W flipped upside down, that works, but at several points later in the court cards, the Page of Cups and also the King of Cups both have the symbol of Christianity, the fish, jumping out of the cup, and the king wears a cup with a fish on his necklace. So,
and that's where the reference had come from. Actually, was the Masons, the Templars, actually, that they were the keepers of the Grail, and that Mary. So I'm glad you see that the Mary Magdalene piece holds water as well. Pun intended.
I've also heard that it can mean the W for weight, for Rider-Waite. And I've also heard it can mean sideways. I think sideways it means something too. Something.
Sigma.
Or am I making that? What is that?
Well,
What is-
sideways it would be a sigma. So like as something approaches infinity in calculus, sigma is also then S. And Skip, do you have an understanding of the word sigma from as a legal term?
No, I have a understanding of it as a Greek fraternity.
Oh,
name.
yeah, okay. Right.
I don't think I'm making it up. I thought, but it was something about like from 3 different, it has at least 3 different meanings. I remember. So
Well,
Yeah,
and
I
that
want
would
to-
make sense. And before we get to that, the next question there is if right here it's a W, upside down it's an M. If you turn it one way, it's a sigma. And if you turn it the other way, it could be greater than or equal to. I mean, there. So, and that one I don't think holds a lot of water. But if we turn it 3 ways, I see there's no reason we shouldn't turn it 4 ways, and it might apply to the psychological functions. I'm just putting that out there. And we had another question there too.
Yeah, no, I wanted to talk about that symbol also, that not related to the tarot, but just in my experience, when you turn that on its side, which for Elektra Records, for the E, what Jack Holtzman, who started Elektra Records, decided to do was to take an M and turn it on its side and make that the E. And his thought about it was that it was a symbol for energy. So it wasn't just an E, but it was actually like a symbolic shape that would be Elektra. And then, of course, it's connected with Elektra, right? And yeah, so that was a record label, and that was in the, I would say, late 40s, very early 50s that he came up with that idea.
That makes a lot of sense because symbolically, as a glyph, it could be lightning that's been abstracted into energy as an E.
Exactly. And it kept being used all the way through for Elektra. But it was just a little, you took an M, you turned it over. That's what it, instead of making an E.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think I would be remiss if I didn't mention which I know we've talked about this before, but it might have been off air, but it could be a W for wisdom. Sophia in Greek means wisdom, and the dove is also a symbol of wisdom and Sophia. So,
right.
And I would really resonate with that, because also the dove going through the crossing, the squared circle of the Latin cross within that white circle.
That's actually bread from the Last Supper. It's the communion, and so taking communion into the sacred water, and wisdom pours forth. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I was looking up the Queen of Cups, because I was just curious what this thing is that she holds in her hands, and I found out that it's something called, I think it's a Siberian, or I don't know, it's some piece of Christian ritual that the Eucharist is held in. So the same thing, the bread.
Yeah, it's the wafer.
Can I share something?
Yeah, please go.
It also bears a resemblance to the Northern European tradition of the runes. In actuality, when you turn it the other way, is N for manas, which is movement. And when you unite it, when you separate it in the center, if you turn it around, it means lagos, which means movement and flow. So it also appears in the Northern European tradition of the runes. And when just if you stand as a human being with your arms together pointing, if you turn it upside down, pointing downwards, and a male and female, then that creates that shape. And since it's still in the cup, it's in as a W, and when it spills out of the cup, it will be the M, because it's already manifesting between male and female, as you can see, is coming out of both sides.
Well, that's an interesting perspective, Gilda. I really appreciate that. I hadn't even thought about that. But then when we move to the Two of Cups, we're going to see the two people in that same posture as the W, reaching their cups across to one another.
Man and woman. Man
Right.
and woman.
Yeah.
Man and woman. Yeah. So that's then the sacred masculine and sacred feminine within.
Exactly.
That's symbolically foreshadowed here on the cup. And then we do that, and there they are.
So
And then
no,
their
go
arms
back a minute. Back a minute,
Yeah.
Jordan. Gilda, I didn't quite catch the link about the Nordic something turning or.
Yeah, the runes. It's the alphabet of the runes. RUNES. You know the alphabet of the runes.
Yeah. Well,
it's
I
really
don't know the alphabet of the runes. But...
Okay, it's very ancient, and it's based on symbology. Rather, you might understand it like let's say Chinese or Japanese, that they layer marks, and then each one means something.
Yeah.
The same thing applies to the Northern European tradition,
right.
and their symbols are originally sounds without words.
Right.
They're sounds. So, and they have meaning. Manas is the M upside down. It means movement. And Lagos, which is half of one, is flow. So when you put them together, there's another one, because I dynamized a yoga that uses the runes as postures. So the male and the female, when standing, and because the runes also are embodied postures, like when you stand like this, you're bringing the energy through here and through there.
Right.
So when you stand like this with your arm, if you put it as an M, a human being with the arms straight like this, one in front of the other, it creates the M, and it creates the union of male and female touching each other, right? It creates the M. And since here the cup is upside down, means that it's still contained. Once it is spilled, then you turn it right side up, and it means movement. And both and each one is flow. Lagos. Lagos means flow. So unless there's energy flowing between the male and the female, then nothing spills.
So that's an excellent point. I just noticed too, it's 8:25. We're still in the ace. Let me go through a couple more cards, and maybe we'll have more segues, but at fewer intervals, so we can make sure we get through. But what Gilda just said, if everyone will focus on that W there, and the vertical bar on the left, make that the female, and the vertical bar on the right, make that the male, and then the two upward angled connecting bars of the bottom middle of the W, visualize those as the hands we're about to see in the next card. And when you see that W, that abstraction that foreshadows this posture. So that's the W.
I didn't even, it's turned around,
Right. And then if you look at the higher side of the lion's head, and we go back to the W, there's the dove that is changed into. So this whole composition with that W to the communion to the dove then causes this.
Exactly.
So this is as if it's become real. And then it's also differentiated through the caduceus there to each, the masculine and the feminine, have a cup, but they're also holding hands that come across.
Yeah.
So there's the circle, but that circle that's here, white, vertically, is now turned flat, and it's a circle formed by their arms, the cups, and the hands in between them that you can't see. So the circle is now on its edge. So in this sense, then, with the Two of Cups, if we move into this card, the lion above, orange, fury, has higher sight. That's in the head. But the connection here is from the heart. So the emotions psychologically intertwine and entwine to serpent up to the rationality above, though the hearts here are in the driver's seat. The communion is in the space, that circular horizontal space between them. So basically the rationality is there, but the hearts drive it. And the question I have is, and we can come back to it, but what's that little red thing way off in the distance? It looks kind of like a house in a sense, which is another kind of vessel. And then if we look at her right foot, the feminine, she has the red shoe. So it's both what's on the ground as below, as what's above a roof on the house in the back. So in that sense, these two inner worlds are coming together, and they are far off from home. Or have they simply gone deeper in their inner psychological worlds where instead of I am, there's a grail of two, beginning to make an illusion that we are each the Holy Grail, and going to look for it outside of ourselves is kind of looking for your sunglasses when they're on top of your head. I think we already have it. So with the Three of Cups, literally 1, 2, 3, we celebrate.
But you missed something. You missed that the man has red on the head and she has red on the foot.
And now, so
he
now
has
we
red on his head. So he is the male principle that of the energy that lowers, and the female Shakti from below coming up. She has it on the feet, he has it on the head. And the house
and the woman's foot is red on the red masculine right side also. So that's a 1, 2, 3 of life-giving blood that then goes into the celebration of life here. And the triangle is the first shape that actually is enclosed and structural. And before that, we just have a point, 1. We have lines, 2. We can have a crossing, but there's not a shape. And then 3, you actually begin geometry. So there's a wrinkle in time here in a way, because then all of the red is now in the one robe up front. Everything else is the orange that was in the lion's head. The flying lion's head is now the fruit on the ground, the gourd in the front, the pears or other fruit back in the back. And so what's interesting here is they seem to have enough. So after the connection in the previous card, psychologically, from an individuation standpoint, we have enough within to then track through here with the 3 to then become the 3 of Cups are on the ground. I mean, hey, dude, look up. You're expecting those 3 emotional expectations in front of you to produce something. The party's over. That happened in that class. That happened in that card. So, but there's more to meets the eye here. Isn't that the Ace of Cups from the cloud now reaching out again, but from the other side, from the unconscious? Now that he has been given consciousness in the Ace of Cups in the initial, if you remember, right here, coming from the right, the conscious side, we come back through here. Now it's coming from the unconscious side because he's becoming aware in the process. And the 4 is the first number of land or boundaries. You can have a triangular boundary, but this becomes meets and bounds like a landscape, like a site plan, like your property.
May I ask a question, Jordan?
Certainly.
Oh gosh, as you were talking, it came up and then it just flew out of my head. Just give me about 5 seconds. What was it? When you said, I believe what you said, correct me if I'm wrong, if it's coming from the right side as we're looking at the card, right? If it's coming from the right side, you said that's the unconscious?
No, the right side of the card is consciousness, and the left side is unconscious. So if you look at a card direction, it comes in from the conscious on the right, or it comes in from the unconscious on the left.
So my question to you is, I'm curious where you got. It says you're using some words that and like phrases that I haven't encountered in the same way, in the same context as you're using them. Where do you get that idea from?
Well, 1, it has been mine. Two, it has been Bob Place. He does a lot of work. Wald Amberstone with the Tarot School as well. And it's been relatively traditionally held for a while that, and part of this comes from reading in Western culture. We read from left to right.
Yeah.
If this would have happened in Japan, maybe it would have gone top to bottom because the way the glyphs, the calligraphy is drawn. But so since this was a Western tradition, reading from left to right, basically, you also can make the left the past and the right the future. Because if you notice in this card, the 3 cups are towards the left, middle and the left. So these 3 cups are now being pushed into the past, whereas this new cup is coming from the unconscious to him. And in a sense, you have 3 going out and 1 coming in. So
I have a question. When one becomes the initiate sitting there, the cup is actually coming from the right. If
from the initiate standpoint, yes.
Exactly.
But what happens is, so there's a consciousness of his unconscious. So it's coming from his right, which is consciousness or future or the far side of the past or far side of the present.
Yeah.
So it's coming, this is from our perspective, we're seeing the unconscious give him this cup, the repeat of the Ace of Cups. But on his right, masculine, active, conscious side, that's coming to him. So there's in the 4, when I look at the quaternity, which is a group of 4, instead of a trinity, which is 3, with this 4, he then becomes conscious of the unconscious, or has the opportunity emotionally with the cups within himself to feel conscious of these unconscious contents that just literally, that one comes out of nowhere. If you remember the Ace of Cups, it came out of the right side of the card from unseen source. There's sky all around this. So this out of nowhere, this is also akin to the imagination and to an idea occurring or a realization about your capital S self in the process.
Can I share? It seems like he's looking down at something that has already materialized. And what this card says is there, and notice that it's at level to his head. It's not up, above. It's level to his consciousness.
To his consciousness, right.
Exactly. So that he's not looking at, that there's
Right.
more than the manifestation of objectivity.
Exactly. And my line up towards the top of the 3's party is over. Those are in the past. So those are empty cups. But now here comes a new one. From that perspective, then, we have these 3 cups on the ground. But what happens? Oops, they fall over. Maybe they weren't empty. Look at the blood of life on the ground. There's green, there's red. He's in grief in a way. And now, with the background here, we see that castle. And it's on the other side of the water, on the unconscious side, and on the right, up ahead, down the shore, down the side of the river, you see a bridge that goes from this side back through him to that inner castle. And there are the 2 cups again now from the 2 of Cups that are behind him, that are his allies, that are support. They can also be something he's just missing. So there's this do not miss the invisible masculine and feminine cup. So in this sense now, that M we see, or that W we see, is here present in the 2 cups, now forward to backward instead of side to side. So now what's happened is we've marked the 4 primary directions, north, south, east, and west, that make the differentiation, the separation between those 4 quadrants, as Samantha mentioned last week, of the psychological functions.
May I, would you like me to hold it, or may I?
Let's move a little further, and then if you would, please hold your question, but definitely do hold it to ask.
Okay.
One thing I'd like to mention here too with the 5 is a big capital N nature number. A lot of people use the word chaos. I like Skip has this red ball. But here what's happened is something has actually been lost. There's a surrender that can occur here and a grief. But those three have been knocked over for these two new ones within, behind him. He's also in a dark cloak. In a sense, his own shadow is looking back to the unconscious. What for? What it's looking back for is this: the reciprocality, the epic spiral of giving and receiving. That is the number 6. It's a very exchange kind of number. So nature here has been placed in the vessel, the flower, not a dove. Now the flower here becomes nature, which is a dove of communion, in a way of celebrating capital N nature, and then sharing this from him, female to male to female here, in terms of the sacred masculine, sacred feminine. And they're also at that house, because this tower with the roof on the left looks a lot like what's in the background over there. We're just seeing the unseen other side architecturally of that tower. This card here brings inner contents outside. There's a harvesting of nature, a picking of a flower. You also look, the 4 spectators in the front, 4 cups, 4 cups filled with nature. These are the 4 psychological functions. These are the 4 directions. These are a cup to celebrate each of the internal counterparts that are below, that are literally, they break the border. They go back into a place we can't see, in a sense, the underworld. So then there's a reference to lava that I had before. What's below the earth? What are the inner inheritances there? This card, the 6th, then transforms to look at this 7 of cups. This really graphically is a higher octave of the Ace of Cups in the cloud. This is a buffet, if you will, of differentiation. It's a banquet full of nature within each of us. But notice, to me, it's like Sesame Street. Which one doesn't look like all the rest of them? Well, look at the skull on the second one from the right. You know, it's a shadow projected into the card from us to the black figure, the dark figure there. But look at then looking at that skull with the laurel wreath. And then look at all these different things in the cups. You have this head with this hair that kind of is reminiscent of that flying lion. You have this serpent up here. Well, that's the caduceus coming out of the cup. It has united. The 2 snakes have become in unity. You have this castle on the hill on the left. That's the house. But now it's high. It's in the mountains. It has risen up. Look at all the splendor and the treasure, the jewels and things in the cup second from the left, the laurel. And then, does anyone know what the blue animal is in the rightest most cup?
Dragon.
I think
Yes.
it's a dragon. Yeah.
It's a dragon. And the blue dragon, water. So there's the inner life, the inner magic of, as Skip has let us know, nature is the magical agency. And those 6 words live in the heart of the dragon. So if we look at this dark figure in the front, as each and every one of us, that's our shadow cast into the card. And the shadow looks forward, shows us, leads by example to these psychic inner contents here in the 7 of Cups.
Did you mention who the person is in the top left cup?
I did not. Is it Percival?
I don't know. I don't think so. I've always kind of thought it might be Dionysus, because I've always thought of the 3 of Cups as maybe being the Maenads dancing, and they hold grapes.
Right.
And,
the Bacchus or Dionysus.
Yeah, and since cups have to do with emotion, I mean, what does wine and the god of wine fill you with? I guess emotion.
Well, and actually, it's spirited, as it were. So it can fill you with spirit, and then you have to be careful of delusions. For example, too much. It's the kind of thing where I like that idea. I haven't thought about that. I was looking at the hair. this morning, and I noticed that it felt to feel a lot like that lion's head previously in the deck. But I think the Dionysus or Bacchus, which is just his synonym name, different language, that holds a lot of water. Again, I'm going to stick with that pun because I don't have to steal that. I think that does hold a lot of water.
Yeah, I mean, that's just been my intuition up to this point. So I don't speak with any final authority, but I think that it does have some merit.
Right. And then we see the masculine right side shadow hand. We do not see the feminine, sacred feminine hand, because that hand has become this whole scene, this cloud. So that hand is the feminine, sacred feminine side is that direct reach into this card, into this cloud-like area, which is a symbol of our inner life. So in the 8, though, now all the cups are put away. Just like the 3 cups before, in the 4 of cups, the 3 cups before, previously, in the 4 of cups, the 3 were on their way out. He's unburdened here, or she. The red 1, 2, 3, 2 red boots. You have the unity of the red roof, the right female foot, that was the masculine side, and then this cloak here. And so in this sense, you've married the day with the night, because what strikes me most about this is you have a full moon eclipsing the sun, but it's not dark. And so to me, there's a combination of the inner and outer, and that which is an unseen source, the sun, which lights the moon. Here you see them both together. So it's as if this guy in this card, or this person in the card, things are safe inside. Here's the treasure. And he's already on the green, the other side of this water. So in that sense, he's stashed these within, in this foreground, because he's then moving forward further into this card. So if you notice too, there's more of a flat terrain. It is rising a bit, but it's not all hilly and rocky and moving around in the foreground. And the front looks actually almost glass flat. So in that sense, there's a nod here to be careful of not going too fast, because there's not a whole lot of resistance over here where the cups are. He is walking uphill. And that to me is a lesson in this card of make sure you have the pressure. That's something to brace against in a way. So that the cups here are emotional treasures, things that he's left behind him. And in a sense, this can be a visual metaphor for mining your past in the individuation process, for assets and internal allies on the current ventures you're working with in the process. Because I find that the individuation process, just like the creative process and many processes, turn back on themselves, not to bite themselves, but to build back in as new practices and new disciplines are entered.
It seems
So
like
here,
that card is
go ahead.
a very sullen card. Like he's just abandoning what he has, and he's just kind of walking off alone.
And I think that could happen, but just 1 second, Gilda, if you would. I think that's important, but I do think that goes more into projection and a divination perspective, because to me, he seems to be looking up at that, look over to the left, up at that sun-moon conjunction there. And so
the face of the sun-moon is sullen as well.
Well, yeah, they're both kind of looking at each other, like sizing each other up in a way. Like, oh, you saw me. Uh-oh, we're together.
I think the 7th of cup, that something was unveiled. And I look at the chakras, there's 7. Exactly. See, there's 7. And once you get up here, duality, and you leave behind all the grasping of materialness, and you realize that there's a unity, and there it is displayed there. He turns away from duality before reaching the 7th chakra, which was hidden. It was hidden before, but now he knows that is there.
And architecturally, the way the cups are stacked structurally, from a left-right, unconscious, conscious, past on the left, future on the right. If you look, 7 cups are they're lined a whole foundation, but the duality, like you said, on the left is on the past side, and the last 8th cup, the new one, the unity, which is sitting as a trinity in itself, is on the right. So in a sense, the trinity and the unity have occurred. So he moved across the water, you see. So these, they say, one man's trash is another man's treasure. And in this sense, he's unloaded the shells. These are like chaff that have come off wheat. He's taking the red life, the cloak, his protection, as it were, are how his feet touch nature in the boots, and what protects him in the cloak. So he's unified to take these contents with him. He's gone across the water, so to speak, literally. So good point. So as we get to the 9, this is the most dynamic number. 9 turns back within itself. I mean, if you don't even have to use a calculator to do the 9 multiplication tables. You literally write 1 through 9 on a page, and then move over to the right and write 1 through 9 up the page. And there they are. It's all the answers. So, 1, 9, 18, 21, 9, 18, 27, 30.
Wish fulfilling number.
45. They flip to 54. So there's a mirror with a 9 here. And the wish fulfilling, he looks kind of smug. And this is kind of the happy version of the way the sun's looking down at him here. So in a sense, that sun, if you focus there, this is his inner world. He is now enthroned. So there's an emotional containment. All these memories that are behind him, he's looking out to us. So this 9 of Cups is that gift of the card to our own inner dynamism coming forward. And we see what he's been through. These 9 trials, these 9 cups have been through the previous processes that we've gone through in the Ace through the 8. And 9s tend to have a tendency to be comfortable in how they are dynamic. But if you look at when you're comfortable, it's kind of like a glass top lake, calm, still, serene. But the unseen is all the dynamic life that's teeming under the surface. So here you want to watch out for unseen things. And if your cup spilleth over, you can rein that in. And if you're spilling some beauty, well, that doesn't need to be cleaned up. That's to be shared back to the 2 and the 6. So here, one thing I would say is, well, where are all those things that were in this card? So there's 7, but we're kind of back to which 2 are a new twin. And that new twin comes into right there. Except now there's a pair of twins. So in this sense,
I don't understand what you mean by twins. Can you slow down and go back? I'd like to see.
Right, because here you have...
He's centered in the 9. If you put the 9 again, here he's not centered. He's off to the side. Here he is perfectly centered, symmetrically centered, right under the 1. 4 here, 4 there, 1 arm here, 1 arm there. He is completely centered. That's why he feels so settled.
Right. And so if we go to here, hold on one, Samantha, if we go back to here with the 7 different things that are filling the 7 cups, and I put them back in here, there are 2 cups left over. So we're back to an implied twin. And none of the cups look any really different than the other, much at all, whereas this one has, a skull, the second from the right. But if you look here, they're almost all the same. And so he's off center on the bench, but he's dead center on the card. And so what happens, like Gilda has just referred to, he's centered. He's fully centered. And in this way, the 4 directions of the psyche literally squaring the circle occur in a mature couple, sacred masculine, sacred feminine, which also birth additional inner life in sacred masculine and sacred feminine below. I assume that's a boy child on the left in a tunic and a girl child on the right with a dress. Not sure, but it doesn't really matter. They're, in a sense, two children. So here, at this point, going from here, you have the opportunity to be still and silent and centered. So in a sense, you're self-centered, not conceited, self-centered. You have center. So here, that opportunity is taken and the cycle completes, because 10 is a complete cycle. So at this point, you have everything you need to up the octave to the next one. And Samantha, go ahead.
I like the idea of the substitution of saying centered instead of self-centered, just centered.
Well, centered, and to me, self-centered is a compliment because it means you have a center in the self. It's when self-centered means narcissistic or rude or omissive or conceited or egomaniacal, then self-centered is negative. I do understand, from a slang perspective, someone says they're too self-centered. You could say self-absorbed or self-motivated. But so, yeah, centered there is an important thing. And I just use self here simply because obviously that's our topic here. So note the couple of adults and their abrasive wholeness together. And tens here are about completions of a cycle. And if you think about the tens as a smaller version of the wheel card, which is 10, then that starts to make sense too here at this scale. Also, the pair of kids dancing together. So they're playing, which is kind of a learning in dance. They're learning how to move, whereas there's stature and a pose and a form. And also, here's that MW again. Now it's the M. So the cup has been turned up over, and the royal bloodline, the royal blood has flowed out to look at their posture and that celebratory way that they're standing. So to me, this is a wonderful visual metaphor for the variety of the old and the young emotional responses we have at any given time. So both of these sets play a part in the overall value of your emotional experiences as we evolve more and more. And here we're about to pass through the portal into the higher self. So here I use this High Priestess card as a symbol of the higher self, just to make a visual reference. Because if you notice, she's rooted in the ground. Her body is very present. Her out-of-body experience reaches up to draw down the moon, and then there's the moon. So in a sense, we have the whole of the cups, start to finish, present in how this card is connected. It's connected to nature on the earth, the vessel of the earth, almost like they're lava tubes under her hands. It's connected to the moon above, and the sun rising at the bottom is also shown in her head, and the 5-starred pentagram or star that's there as her mind. So this is an inner world emanating from the body and an out-of-body experience. I just wanted to set the tone there with when you're moving into the higher self in the courts. I find it helpful to run back through the process of all of the 10 cards prior before you then go into, here we go. Now the fish, which is the Christ, not the JC Christ, but the Christ of self, is coming from the cup. It's being gifted to this page. Pages are usually younger. In the Thoth deck, of course, there's a princess. And that makes sense because then you have a princess and a queen and a knight and a king, and then you have co-equal amounts of, same amounts of gender, sacred gender. But here you are self-initiated. Here you're inducing a rite of passage consciously with a deeper emotional strength here at the Page of Cups. So if you think about it like graduation, like emotional commencement into the higher self. But think about commencement at graduation. You're not done. Always finished, but never complete, because you commence with commencement to go out into the world, to enact what you now need to do. So here you've enriched the emotional content you have learned and brought forth in your life with the previous 10, and now they are unified in one cup of you as well. And as the cup fish, the unconscious looks to the right, to consciousness, and the consciousness looks to the left. And here we have almost a caduceus. The cup and the fish are one of the snakes, and the page would be one of the snakes, visually intertwining up that path of individuation of the staff. And then the knight takes this cup. What's happened here? I mean, this is a page, playful, tunic. And then there's regal, posture. The horse has been tamed, but it is in motion. So here, emotions are always on the move within. Here's where you want to visualize that glass top of a calm lake again. It's potentially you here. And then look at the wonderful dynamism under the top of a pond. It doesn't stop living even when it's really calm and serene. Same with us, except you can almost feel that splendor of your life within in this process when you're able to calm the outside. Because then this night comes to, and take a look at the wings on his helmet. And then there are two cherubs up top that are like cherub merman and mermaid up top in the mind and on the throne. And then another one at the bottom with wings. It's more of an angel cherub. So as we take this card, look at her holding the Ace of Cups. It's closed. And in a sense, it's part of that cup before, except almost broken in half, turned back upside down, but it's contained. And if you look even closer, it looks like a house sitting on top of this two-armed chalice with the 1, 2, 3 windows and the 3 pitched roofs, and then this cross up top. So what's interesting here, queens are natural leaders. They're savvy, but they also often can stand back and watch more than they do if there's a king there. Now you take Queen Elizabeth, and she's very much present. But in that sense, this is the queen. Your inner wisdom lives in your emotions here. You can trust your gut in the process. And with the emotions here, as Bruce Lee said, you can see farther through a tear than through a telescope. And that says that this process is not always going to be easy. And as Raquel has mentioned in the chat, in mythological tarot, the Queen of Cups is Helen of Troy. Would you like to speak to that with the mythological reference, Raquel?
Actually, all the card cards in the Suit of Cups are very controversial figures. Helen of Troy is seen as a woman that, as a reason for the War of Troy. I don't. It's a part of Greek mythology where a woman decided to leave her husband to live her love for another man. So, and because of that, all this fighting and war were unleashed, and she was seen as solely the entire blame had fall in her shoulders. But the point of Helen of Troy is that is a woman that is not afraid to live the love that she wants, and she doesn't have actually any problem with loving someone one day and the other days that love might have ended. So, and she will move on. And that is like in a sense of the Queen of Cups is the idea that the love is mutable in some way, you know, and it's
Right.
not just because you're a woman that you cannot live what you want in the relationship fields. So it's actually in readings a very difficult figure to encounter because it usually brings up a lot of social problems with the archetype of women in our society.
Right, and that makes a lot of sense too, because if you look, it doesn't feel like her throne has a back. It feels like that's a dark portal to the internal shadow. I mean, for the darkness, it feels like if she got out of the way, you could climb in the cave, so to speak. And the two winged figures that are dark on each of the two handles are shadow figures, two of them.
Yeah, it's kind of like sights, you know. Like,
yeah, and so this is the Two of Cups in a sense, but not all love and light here. This is not the numinous. This is the shadow has been embraced and given home to literally roost on top of these handles, which, yeah, she's not pulling any punches. And that mythological aspect you mentioned of, you know, she'll love and then it dies and she will love again. She's sitting, the throne is sitting on the ground looking, excuse me, she's looking to the left and the water's coming in from the left to the right. I assume the tide's coming in. So again, you have the crossing. But so she's, in a sense, she can toss that cup into the water. But it also is kind of her own herald of all of these cups. Yes.
Okay, so I am less than, I know very little about the King Arthur myth, and I'm looking for in my ancestral path tarot that I for my presentation, I shared some of the images there, and I mentioned that there's the Japanese, they take 4 different cultures in 4 different time periods, each in a specific epic of that culture. And they take the mythology of, they have the Japanese representing swords during a certain, like a feudal era that I'm not familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
They have Native American, there's a specific indigenous tribe that they have circles for coins, and then the Egypt is staves or wands, and then Europe, not all of Europe, I think specifically wherever the King Arthur myth originated, I would guess England or some type of Anglo-Saxon, right? The Queen of Cups is I was looking for the picture, I'll find it. Ah, here she is. They said that this is supposed to be Guinevere.
Right.
And so I was wondering, I know you guys mentioned familiarity with this, how you would connect it. Because I appreciate how Raquel connected the Roman, Greek or Roman? Myth? Greek. And
Greek, yeah.
Right, the Greek.
So what is Guinevere's deal? Because I know very little about her character, other than she's an object of romance. But
well,
I don't.
Raquel, could you field that question? Because I think your mythological knowledge far exceeds mine.
I actually, mythological of King Arthur, I really am, I don't know. I'm not aware.
I would like to guess.
So King Arthur had a wife, whose name was Guinevere, and she fell in love with Lancelot.
So similar story. Someone who follows her heart, the queen who follows her heart.
Right, and when that happened, it tore the court apart.
Mm-hmm.
And meanwhile, there was another female in it. What was her name? Not Mordred, but Mordred's
Morgan. No,
Morgana.
Morgan Le Fay.
Morgana Le Fay. There's actually a television series about this whole thing, 5 years worth, called Merlin, which is worth following. But in any case, and by the way, I don't think the television series is necessarily accurate to the
Right.
legend, but Morgana is King Arthur's, or in the television series, it's King Arthur's sister, but
in the original too, I think.
yeah, maybe that's right.
Yeah, that's
Right.
I remember reading.
And so she gets angry and jealous because Arthur is going to inherit the throne, and so she goes to war with everybody, and so the whole thing has this moment in the sun, and then it collapses because of human behaviors.
Right. And if we take that and go a little deeper back here, look at this. He's about to cross this water that she's looking into.
Yep.
And he looks away to the future and off to the front. So he's disconnected.
Right.
So we get a directional knight moving towards the queen. And traditionally, too, in a lot of decks, and even historically, the knight was often the consort of the queen. And that kind of came from the Lancelot story, where the king was the king, but the knight and the queen were the couple.
Because she protects, the knight protects the queen, yes?
Right. The knight protects the queen, but
Like a
also
bodyguard.
then the king becomes sovereignty itself. So rather than being a person, his hands are occupied. I mean, he's got a cup and a scepter, and the scepter has a cup-ish on the top as well, and he's isolated out on a concrete pad throne in the ocean.
I'd like to jump in here. So because the queen, so now as we're talking about these myths, I'm weaving a narrative for myself, right? It makes sense that this would be the way it is, because the king, we think of couplings like with mammals, you know, where the male is protecting the female, and the male protects the female because she carries the progeny, right?
Right.
She's the future, so her vessel. Now, we might not care about anything else about her, depending on which society it was, but she has the womb. So if the king is to rule, he can't be concerned about his lady all the time. That's very time consuming. So I think the purpose of the knight is almost like the purpose of an inversion of the idea of a concubine or a mistress. The knight then takes on the role of bodyguard, physically protecting the queen, and the king can just rule his subjects. But that being said, yeah, then that can lead to infidelity. So I'm appreciating this story
and wars.
and wars.
But I'm appreciating, I'd like to say one more thing. Thank you.
But hold that thought. Don't forget what you just said, because keep that, because I'm going to go back to it.
And then the other thing is, you know, last week I was pissed off because we were, I mean, I wasn't pissed off enough that I couldn't function, but this idea of what we were talking about of love affairs outside of committed unions or socially recognized unions. I see it more as some type of metaphor, right? For following, the queen follows her heart, right? So if we're using this myth to look at the connections between the court cards, to me, that's an act of faith and individuation, you know, and I'm speaking figuratively. I'm not saying, hey, all the ladies should cheat on their partners. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, in order for her to take that leap and be with the knight, or the other one with the Greek lady, she needs,
Helen, right.
Yes, she needs to listen to a force that is outside of the established religion, that is outside, that is kind of anti-institutional. She's listening to the God within her heart, as opposed to what you're told from the outside. So that was a way I just made peace with what I heard Skip saying last week.
Which is excellent. Now, I would like, if you would, I would like you to visualize everything you just said with the infidelity, and I get it.
Wait. I'm gonna hold on. Let me just get grounded. Okay.
Hey, can I just share something here?
Sure,
Go ahead.
Here, I'll read it. This is from the Aleister Crowley deck and the Queen of Cups, which is what it seems to me. A woman who reflects the nature of the observer. Okay, she has embodied the ability to be an observer of inner consciousness, dreamy, tranquil, poetic, imaginative, kind, yet not willing to take much trouble for another. And she's much affected by surrounding influences, therefore more dependent than most other cards on goodwill and dignity, good or ill, because she's, I think that what Samantha's saying, that she needs to be protected and so on, because she's has embodied looking at the reflection, which is an inner process. And if you're busy with that, anything can happen on the outer world that is not reflecting.
Yes. Now, holding that thought along with Samantha's, let me come back here. And this isn't a story of infidelity here, though Lancelot and Guinevere kind of play into how the characters are developed. The knight is the consort of the queen. These are the Six of Cups figures all grown up, because this isn't a man. This is sovereignty of the unconscious. His throne is completely surrounded by the waters of the ocean, which any ocean, Jung always indicated, visions of the ocean is the unconscious. And so this is the two coming together, the cup and the cup. Her cup's more evolved. So Gilda, like you just said, she is the embodiment of that. But here is absolute capital S sovereignty within our psyche. The individuation process emotionally has reached another point of completion as he's completely enthroned, but that throne is completely the ruler of the unconscious within from all the water around.
I'd like to cut in. Oh, go ahead.
He doesn't need to look at an object any longer. He is
right.
the embodied. He is fully there with so he's not like she was the observer looking at the reflection. He needs not to do that anymore. He is already all of it. Peripheral, yes, peripheral 360 embodiment of reflective abilities.
And I've got just a couple more things here I'd like to go into. This is something, take a screenshot if you like, but to do further study with these cards, because I have two special cup surprises that I brought to the end of this today. But you can further explore the cups by simply looking at the birth card groupings. So for example, the ace is a 1, the sun is 19, 1 plus 9 is 10, equals 1 plus 0 is 1, and the wheel is 10, is 1. So you can explore these birth card pairs, either to have, for example, the Ace of Cups work with your Sun Wheel Magician, if that's your birth card pair, or you can have the Hanged Man and the Empress be informed by the 3 of Cups. And this is a way to work with any 4 of the suits, of the wands, the cups, the pentacles, or the swords. So this is just a simple thought to give everybody an opportunity to do some fun homework, if you would, with your birth cards. On my website, if you type in 9-part identity or birth placing, I have 9 different articles written on the tarot birth cards that might be an interesting thing to explore as a field trip. And then surprise number 1. It's often hard to find something when you go looking for what you already have. Like, take, for instance, the Holy Grail. I say you are the Holy Grail. Your heart and soul are the sacred contents of the Grail. Your body is the vessel of the Grail itself. You are the temple in man, the temple of woman. Does anyone feel that's too bold a statement? Because sometimes when I wear sunglasses, I lose them because they're on my head. So with the alchemists, I think that the Holy Grail is us, each of us. And what's interesting is I was on a conversation on Kylie Laughlin's Facebook site yesterday and the day before. He's put out some wonderful quotes that are really sparking some great discussion. And I'm like, the Grail is the self. And then I turn around and jump on his page and, well, that's not a new idea. It's new for me. But then I realized, look at this. Jung and the Holy Grail. Emma Jung worked almost her whole life, and Mary Louise von Franz completed her work. And I can't find the passage, but then I remembered the quote, the Grail is the incarnate God in self, from Emma Jung. So I suggest I want to put together a presentation on further down the line for the Holy Grail as the self, to take us through some of what's not so much my work, but Jung's work and Emma Jung and Mary Louise von Franz says. So I would like to read this quote from Mary Louise von Franz and Emma Jung. Insofar as the person becomes increasingly conscious, qualities and knowledge which had previously been unconscious and therefore attributed solely to God come more and more within his sphere of influence. This has not gone so far that, thanks to his understanding of matter, man could at this moment release world-annihilating explosions compared with that of the acts of destruction committed by the gods of mythology. Makes them seem puny indeed, where this increasing consciousness of the God image in man may yet lead, where it may lead is far beyond speculation. In any event, it lays upon the individual a moral responsibility, previously barely dreamed of, as well as a great obligation to strive for higher consciousness, which means taking his own individuation seriously. In this sense, Percival faces us as a symbol of modern man before who this colossal task is laid. The stone or vessel indicates the goal, that is, the need to realize the total man or woman.
And who is Percival in the legend?
Nicholas, can you speak to that?
Percival's kind of begins the story. I guess to put it very briefly, he's kind of the hero in the story. I mean, as is King Arthur, but he's more of kind of the king archetype in the story. And Percival is kind of the young hero with an unlikely birth and background that eventually, I think the legend goes something like, I can't remember which woman in the story it is, but it's a woman that is coupled with the Red Knight, which is the enemy of Percival in the story. And it's believed that when the real true king appears, that she'll just burst out into laughter. And finally, Percival makes his way through this great journey to the castle where she is, and she bursts out in laughter. And that's kind of the beginning of the arc of the hero's journey at that point.
Did he make her laugh?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily, but like he came in and cracked a joke.
Could have been.
Well, it could have been. You're right. Yeah, I'm just saying. I think it was prophesied to her that she, at the sight of the real true king, would burst out into laughter.
Well, I was just thinking about how, it's sort of like in the Oedipus myth and a lot of these myths in Greek mythology, it ends up being fulfilled, but it's in an unexpected way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Or it's in a way that by the time it happens, it doesn't even seem like this sacred thing or this what do you call, the word's escaping me. It's not it doesn't seem like a lightning bolt by the time you see it. It's not a burning bush. It seems normal, which is why we don't always see the magic in the everyday, I guess. Mm-hmm. We don't always see the symbols because they're happening all the time.
Well, and then that idea of the real queen bursting into laughter, that's then the pomegranate of self opening up to burst out all the seeds to spread laughter, nourishment, the inner contents come outward in a way that they're purely flowing.
Could I make a few comments while I still have the ball here, at least partially? Great. So while you guys were talking about the Queen of Cups, I had several things I wanted to say. The first,
You mean to scroll back to her?
that'd be great. Yeah. You brought up the Bruce Lee thing, and that kind of it made me think of this quote by Bruce Lee. I'll just say I'm a huge Bruce Lee fan. I used to have all of his movies on in a VHS box set when I was young.
Nice.
I used to watch them religiously. So, but Bruce Lee, apart from his obvious talents that everybody knows him for, he was a really hip guy. So on the topic of water and Bruce Lee, and also all the stuff about the kind of ever-changing form of the Queen's love, the passivity of the Queen, it brought to mind this quote by Bruce Lee: "Empty your mind, be formless, shapeless, like water. Now you put water in a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it into a teapot and it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow or it can crash. Be like water, my friend." Which is just a phenomenal quote. And
yeah, it's one of my favorite from him.
I don't think that it's so much that he was speaking directly to any tarot symbology or anything. I think that he was actually talking about the Taoist idea of the Wu Wei, the water course way.
Well, also, actually, just from a physics and martial arts standpoint, too, the idea of a speed break in a board is that you break it before it has a chance to move. And what's interesting, that when you punch something, you will hurt yourself punching slower than you will punching faster. Just like you belly flop off a diving board, what happens is the liquid in your tissues and the knuckle, when hit at incredible rates of speed, acts like a solid, so that water in a heavy, dense, voluminous wave crashes as a force. Whereas if that much water just kind of flowed by you, you're like, inner tubing in a lake, and it's not any big deal. But the ability for water to function as a solid is even hidden in that quote, which I love that quote. So I just wanted to add that in there.
Okay, great. I have a few other comments that I wanted to make. One is that I would like to, and maybe it can be something to start a conversation, or maybe I can just make the comment, but I think that generally, and I don't want to speak out of turn, so any of the women in the group, please correct me if anything I
I'll
say.
shut you down. Don't worry.
Yes, please do if anything I say is
No.
off base. But I think that more times than not, the description of masculine being active, feminine being passive or receptive, is kind of scoffed at least from the female perspective. But I would just like to counter and say that I think that there is an immense power in the passivity that would go along with someone like the Queen of Cups character, because it's not difficult at all for me to imagine a situation, say you have kings, queens, and their families in a room, and all the men are yucking it up and talking about this and that. But it's no difficulty for me to also imagine a queen sitting back, very kind of passively observing what's going on, and having a very good read on the room, and being, intimately tapped into exactly what's going on, and having kind of a different form of power than one that's just active and making deals and discussing future developments and all of that kind of thing. So I think, I don't know, that's
and she'll cut your guts out if you make a mistake.
Hell
Yes,
hath no
because
fury. Hell hath
hell
no
hath no
fury.
fury.
right.
Also, if you look,
It makes me
look at the Lady of the Lake,
Go
to
ahead.
support you.
Go ahead. Finish your thought. I want to hear it.
It makes me think of Cersei in Game of Thrones. Even though she's kind of a wicked character, she's more times than not kind of in the background. She's sitting back and listening, and she can say in 3 words what most of the characters would struggle to say in an entire speech. And there's an immense power in that, I think. And I think just by the description of active and passive, it kind of seems like it's relegated to a position of lesser power, but I think it's equally, if not more so, powerful, just in a different way.
I would like to speak to that if you're done.
there's one more comment I wanted to make, and this will be the last thing, but I just think it's also interesting. We've had so much to say about couples. And I mean, there's also the just obvious phonetic relationship between cups and coupling. And I just
Yes.
thought that was really funny.
No, and it's not even a pun because you have the even the CO in the beginning. So of coupling. So
that's all I had. I'm sorry, I was kind of bursting to say all that and couldn't get a word in edgewise, but.
And Samantha, if I could, right before you go, just to support your point, Nicholas, about the passivity versus the water that flows and the water that crashes, think about the Lady of the Lake. She is the lake until the magical agency comes in to form her into Excalibur, the sword that arises from the Lady of the Lake, who is only the lake. This passive and serene until activated, and then look what happens. So that's a great example with even coupled. There we go with Bruce Lee's quote. But Samantha, yes, go ahead.
There's a question there's a question implied to me in what Nicholas said, although you didn't ask it overtly, which is like, what of that? What of the fact that, is there a hierarchical thing going on when we say one is receptive, the feminine's receptive, and the masculine is, I want to say giving. The feminine receives and the masculine gives. I think that's a nice way of saying it. And my answer to that is that in any society, people fall into the role they need to fall into to be of use to the society, and for whatever their personal ambitions are, to cater to that, depending on how ambitious they are. So I mention this because, like, for instance, Bruce Lee, he fulfilled his sort of, him knowing martial arts gave him an advantage to become a superstar because he was to become an American celebrity as an Asian man because he knew martial arts. But he wasn't, and I remember him being interviewed. I don't remember the exact quote, but I had never thought of it, that at some point, like, he wanted to play other roles, but because of being Asian and facing, other people's projections on him, and because he was hella good at martial arts, you know what I'm saying? He just happened to be really fucking good at martial arts as well. He used that role, you know what I'm saying, as far as he could go. And so, anyway, I know less about Bruce Lee. What I also wanted to speak to, though, is that if you think about it, like, a woman, again, if you're in a society that is patriarchal, and these women are, right, growing in these societies, it's how they use their role. So if you're in a position where it's not becoming of you to speak up, and in a lot of these myths, you hear this too, like, or with Macbeth, with Cersei, part of their challenge is that they're relegated to a lower role. So the way that they get power is either through bearing the child of the king or sort of whispering in his ear and influencing him through manipulation. But I think in this case, this is the last thing I have to say on Queen of Cups. What's so revolutionary about it is that it's sort of like how last week I was saying in terms of extramarital love or affairs, if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. For her, as a queen who's expected to be the womb of the next, ruler, for her to put that at risk could either be really foolish, but it could be sort of brave. And I think that her looking at the cup, to be with the knight is what I'm saying. And her looking at the cup, you could also say, I mean, that's a yoni symbol. So the fact that she would choose someone she's also attracted to, and I don't think I have to continue that, hopefully that metaphor even further, but a cup filled with water, how is that, like,
Well, that does make that's I'm glad you brought that up. And Raquel has her hand up. Raquel, do you want to go?
Well, I think I need to clear something out about the Helen of Troy archetype, is that she's not actually a deceiver. She's not a liar. And she actually was the one to tell Agamemnon, that was her husband, that she was in love with another man and she was going to leave him. So, and we can like these ideas of how women are perceived today is very different when you put those ideas in Greek mythology, because in that time there was no divorce. A woman did not leave the marriage institution only by dying, and not because she was having other relationships or anything like that. So she left Agamemnon to live her love with Paris. And then once he was dead, she went back to Agamemnon. She went back to her marriage, and then she fell in love with someone else, and then she left him again. It's not an actual infidelity case or problem, you know. And the idea of the Queen of Cups is actually, you have to realize there's something about love, and there's something about relationship, and there's something about sex that you want to experience, but in the relationship that you are currently on, you're not able to do that, mostly because you are afraid of something, of some kind of social judgment of that desire, you know. So and you can like live those desires without actually doing something wrong. Like you can tell the person, hey, this is over, I want to have sex with other people, or like, let's open the marriage. I don't know, maybe the other person will you know, thumbs up, you know.
Right. And I think that's a wonderful point. And actually Gilda has her hand up, but right before she does, and right before she goes, Nicholas made a great point about the cup and the couple. But if I also now take the interpersonal couple out of the equation and just posit the concept of the soul's twins from Dr. Jean Raffa, all of this male-female dance is occurring within each one of us. So there's a point there where the infidelity would be not listening to your own emotions, the infidelity of not paying attention to yourself. So there's a piece there that couples with this, that removes the interpersonal aspect, and it all becomes us. So it's both and. It's the relationship with another person, but based on the relationship with your own inner world.
I must speak to this because Raquel brought up something that that tied in a thought that the original thought that I had, and I went off on a tangent and talked about that instead.
Okay, and then we'll have Gilda right after you.
Yeah, what I'd like to say before I forget is that, well, two things. One is that I don't mean to say, I'm talking about as a metaphor, I'm not talking about this as a reality. That's for people to decide for themselves. And I'm not saying that I'm for, like, I'm not saying the woman is dishonest. What I'm saying is, looking at what is heroic in the act. Why is this story being told? If you consider the fact that there wasn't birth control back then like there is now, she must have really loved someone in order to risk so much to entertain the relationship with that other person. That's what I'm trying to talk about. And I also wanted to say, to speak to Nick's original, I hope you're listening, Nick, because I know you went away for a sec, but and tying in what Jordan said about the masculine and feminine within us, there is a higher incidence of homosexuality in groups of people that are homosocial. So amongst men, you will see more men who wouldn't consider themselves gay outside of prison, for instance. It's very common for there to be homosexual liaisons in prison of a sexual to romantic nature and everything in between. Same thing with women. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is, you kind of adopt. There's a type of frog. Follow me. I'll connect the dots. But there's a type of frog that the same thing will happen. If there are no men in a colony or group of frogs, if there's no males, there's females that actually have the ability to change their gender. So in order to continue the population. So I'm relating this to the way that we will go more into masculine or more into feminine qualities, at least I find that's true about myself, depending on the environment that I'm in. And it's just something that happens naturally. And I think a lot of couples can be like that too, even within same-sex couples. Sometimes there's one that's more masculine, sometimes there's one that's more feminine, and that's not always the case. But I wanted to talk about that, about how I can find meanings in terms of me being a modern woman, Nick, or whatever, and a feminist. How do I find meaning in these? That's how I find it.
Well, that's a wonderful comment, because that makes the psyche into a standard transmission with ABS brakes or traction control on or off. And based on your situation, you're now then adapting where you're more masculine or more feminine in any situation to flow or crash, act or be still in a place. And that's a great point, Samantha, about the variability within an environment. And Gilda has her hand up. If you
Okay. I'll make a few points. I'll begin with Bruce Lee. And I did a little research on him because he's a fascinating figure. And the quote that was shared by Nicholas speaks about the way that he approached when he was in a duel. That
Yes.
if he moved like water, he would be able to, ahead of time, that's like before having a thought of what's going on that you see, you would be able to anticipate what move you needed to make in order to be on top, in order to be successful. And by being like water, as he described it, was kept the fluidity available with reflection in order to strike when it was necessary.
And on that, he actually said that if you are stationary, it requires two moves to strike. And the first one will telegraph what you're going to do, and I won't be there by the time it gets there. But if he would flow his direction forward, so in a sense, he's broken inertia. So you're not starting from a standing start. And so the punch or the kick was the second motion from him already being in motion. You just wouldn't see it coming because you don't have any reaction time. It's struck by the time you notice it.
Right. It's the and before the one.
Yes.
I always say that the and is more important than the one, because without the and, there's no one, no nothing. It goes in dance, it goes in everything. And then the other comment was with Marie Bonfrance and what you offered. And we read somewhere along the way, one of her books, that she finished the book for Emma because Emma passed away.
Right.
And she said she was, and Emma was still, had not finished it because she still had not come to that one spark that unraveled the whole thing and nailed her research. Right. And Marie Bonfrance said that the way that she was able to find that spark was Merlin. Merlin did it.
Merlin.
So that exactly through Merlin, when Merlin was the key that was missing in the whole research. And Merlin is, of course, the male magician who once he entered the picture, then the whole story blossomed into from every aspect. So I wanted to share that. And as far the other, she's able, for me, the Queen of Cups is able to penetrate into that which is unseen. She has access to the truth found in reflection.
Right.
And whether, and once you hold the truth, you have power to act, to act or not. Now, as far as the other female comments that have been made, I've been single all my life, and I was able to exercise whatever it was that my figure thought where to go and what to do. So to say that when I hear other females comment that because they can't do this or circumstances, family or otherwise, well, I think it's because they also enjoy being under the umbrella and protection of the family structure or the structure and of security that the outside environment offers. But if they really wanted to if they really saw that truth reflected there, this is what I need to do, they would go out and do it.
Well,
Mhm.
I'd
Yeah.
like to say something. This is the last, hopefully the last comment I'll make about the infidelity thing, but you could look at it as the person being dishonest on the one hand, or you could look at it as in this time before there was birth control in these patriarchal societies, it was common for men to have liaisons. It's the same thing with Anna Karenina. That's the whole, why would she be a hero, right? This woman who has an affair and then kills herself. Like that's what happens in the book. Sorry, spoiler alert, everyone. But it's
Already read it. It's okay.
classic Russian literature. I'm like, nerds, come on, do you hear me? Anyway, holla if you hear me. But what I'm trying to say is that what she did that was different is not that she had a quote unquote a love affair. It's that she didn't think to hide it. She didn't care. She didn't
Anna
care.
Karenina didn't care.
She didn't care if people knew. This is how we analyzed it at my all girls high school in my AP English class, and it just came back to me right now. Is that she was being criticized even by her husband because she was so flagrant about it in public. So I think that in the case of, perhaps it's the same. I'd have to look into these other mythologies with the King Arthur and Trojan Helena, right? I'd have to look more deeply into it, but perhaps, I'm just saying, perhaps they were actually being honest with, oh yeah, the Greek one was being honest according to the way Raquel told it. They're being honest because they're doing the same thing the other people are doing, except the other people are hiding it. But in a way, the fact that they come right out and like they're not hiding it, that's what's honest.
Yeah. Okay, Jordan, could you discontinue the share now?
I have one surprise though for you.
All
That
right, well,
is at the end.
all right, we'll bring it on, and then there's a couple of questions on the chat on YouTube I want to get to here.
So, Skip, as a thank you to you, something came to me this morning. You've mentioned your story of when you came upon chapter 5 in Ion. It's like, what a surprise. And then, but of course, you stick to it and it's there. And like a grain of sand in an oyster, a decade or so later, you unpack the message. But what I realized today, chewing on this for myself, if I combine the 5 of Cups and the Hierophant, the 5 of Cups is kind of a Christ figure card with this treasure, and the Hierophant brings the spirit to the earth. So for you, I just wanted to put these two cards together as kind of a, these seem to be a poster child pair for chapter 5 in Ion in a way of the Christ as self metaphor. So, and also just wanted to say thank you for having this program.
Okay.
Thank you, Jordan.
And that's
Thank
it.
Thank you, Jordan. Yes, that was good. Temple of Man series.
Well, that was the last. I poured that from my cup
Okay.
in 1992. But we have questions, and I know we're 15 from
we-
10.
We diverge for a moment here. Asterox Foundation, whoever that is, since it's anonymous, asks, been hearing from some of those in Tarot that 2021 is going to be the year of the Hierophant.
Mhm.
Not exactly sure what that means. And
It's because of the year. 2021 is 2 + 0 + 2 + 1 = 5. So the number of the year is Hierophant. Whereas
Also
last year,
astrological.
2020 was 2 + 2 is 4. Last year was an Emperor year.
It's astrological too. I know because I'm Taurus, and I've been told because of the 5s in my birthday's 5/5/85. So that the Hierophant's the number 5. And I
Well,
find
actually-
it.
On the other hand, I would put it in a different way, archetypally, which is that archetypal teacher, master, for Americans anyway, the archetypal master teacher is teaching us a lesson this year, and it's going to be pretty.
Which is very hierophantic.
Oh, is
Yeah.
it? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? A literal
Well, we're being taught a lesson about our own immaturity.
Oh,
Yeah.
archetypally.
Not only the people who attack the Congress, but also the people who won't penalize Trump. Okay, what father lets a child get away with that kind of crap?
A sociopath.
Right.
Pardon?
A sociopath. His
Yeah,
niece
sociopath.
firmly
But
believes that Trump's dad was a sociopath. That's what she said. In her
So
email.
Samantha, I do want to
Well,
say you were
yeah,
misled
but
about
the
the
father
five.
in this case, I'm not talking about Trump's father. I'm talking about
A general
people who-
father,
the
like what
people who
dad?
are
Right.
the archetypal father who is the great white father in Washington. Excuse the racial reference, but
That's what it is. For
yeah,
for
but
worse.
all right, but I mean the government. Okay,
Yes.
the government
Yeah.
cannot tolerate what happened. Okay, it can't be allowed, and it shouldn't be allowed. But that's what we're letting happen. The Hierophant in this case is letting the disobedient kid get away with it.
Well, and speaking
Probably.
of that, then also Samantha, I'd like to offer you a little piece here. Whoever quoted you as 5585 should go back and look at how to calculate them, because 55 plus 85 does equal 23, which equals 5. But that's not how you calculate birth cards. You have to use 1985, which comes out to 24, which equals 6. So your birth cards will be the Devil, the Lovers, the two cards that equal 6.
Oh shit, that explains a lot. Pardon me.
See what happens when you scold someone who does birth cards wrong? So you get something good.
No, I did it on the internet, right? Serves me right. There was
Right,
no-
but I mean, the 5585 is someone who's trying to teach themselves, but teach themselves without touching the water,
Well, what
so
did
to
I-
speak.
Why did I think that though? I got it
Well,
from
5 plus 5 plus
Yeah.
85 equals, if I break it down, 8 and 5 is 13,
No,
plus
no, no.
5
I
is
follow the
18.
math. I get that.
But that equals 5. And that's
Yeah.
5 as a Hierophant. But when you add the 19 in front of the 85, then you get 1985, which is that 13 plus 1 and 9 is 10 is 23, plus 5 is 28. And then 10 and 8 is 18. And 5 is 23, and 5 is 28. Well, actually, there you go. And it's 32. So back to, you're correct. It works with 85 or 1985. Equals 5 both ways. So I stand corrected. So
Maybe
see,
it
there
had
we go.
something to do with the time I was born as well, or something. I don't remember. But
That's not factored into tarot birth cards, though. So I think you are the Hierophant. So you're
all I know
Temperance
is what you said
Hierophant.
about the devil and the lovers makes a lot of sense. But that is my shadow. I repress the out of that.
Well, what happens
I
is
don't.
6.
That's why I'm so judgmental of it.
Well, the
Because
6, which is the Lovers, comes after the Hierophant. So you can use the birth card pair before and the birth card grouping after. Some of them have 3.
meaning
But
I
actually,
would never, if someone's married, I think they're untouchable. I don't.
Yeah. So, Gilda,
so-
do you want to comment on something here?
Oh.
You have your hand up.
Yeah, I wanted to comment about the Hierophant that, as I understand it, it carries mercy, whereas the Emperor carries rulership, however, in
Severity.
whichever way.
Mhm.
Exactly. So once the Hierophant is introduced, that means that regardless of what's going on, the element of spiritual reckoning is available to bring together whatever needs to be had.
Right.
And mercy is one of them. And as a result of having spiritual awareness penetrating, then the heart center, the lovers, then
Right.
result, which is the next card.
And the lovers are the twin. I mean, we don't see a twin in the other than temperance in a way, but with two figures. I mean, all the rest of the major arcana cards only have one character, except, well, judgment has then multiple people. So but that's at the end. That's the resurrection. Whereas the lovers are the beginning, the introduction, as it were, to the entwinement or entanglement. Are there other questions, Skip, from the YouTube channel or anyone else in the panel?
Well, not really. There was another sort of question. Taking on a role in society is putting on a mask. Yes, it can be, but not always. I mean, it is a persona. It can be a persona, but your persona can also be genuine.
Right.
And it can be liberating.
I mean,
if you fully embrace it, if that's all you got and you fully embrace it, it can liberate.
Well, and that's the king of
or it
cups.
can obscure. I mean, I depending on what clothes I put on, I can present myself in different ways.
Right.
Okay. And
like if I would have gone to the closet and worn a tie today, part of you guys would go, does Jordan have a twin brother? We've never seen him in a tie. Is he sick? You know. But you know,
that would be a persona. But
right, exactly.
And so, you know, taking on a role in society would be like becoming the president. Okay, and so that is a persona, but it also can be your genuine self. Okay, which I think in the case of our current president, it is.
Right.
Because he's living his self. But that's just my opinion. But or mostly, I mean, not to the extent that you can ever get away from the persona aspect of it. I mean, that's true.
That would be seeking perfection, and even Jung indicated from the research I've done outside of class, you know, to the ability that I could, that to seek for perfection, that's dangerous. That's why our individuation process keeps going, because we can't perfect it in a single lifetime.
Well, Salvador Dali said, don't worry about perfection. You'll never reach it. So, I mean, it's like, it's not something to worry about.
I've even heard monks who have said that they have it easier because they might want to learn about the Dhamma and practice the Dhamma, but they also can live in a setting where there's no distractions, there's not the same temptations in the outer society.
Well, those monks are not really practicing appropriately. I even criticize my wife sometimes, because if you have to have total silence to meditate, then you haven't really achieved it.
Right.
And I can practice in the middle of a busy street or busy intersection in New York City and put myself in a deep meditation. Okay. And I don't have to shush people, right? But my wife sometimes has to shush me, or you know, she has to have the television off, whereas I don't care. You know, if the television's on, that's fine. It doesn't bother me in the least bit. So, and
there's the glass top lake I was mentioning too. The ability to work under duress, in pain, under pressure, hot, cold, or otherwise, and still delicately perform anything without affect, and that's a different meditation and a trained skill.
It depends what you're being called to, because there are also people who, you know, I think I told you guys a while ago that I was actually very moved. I went on a retreat where I was like, it scared me because I thought I could see myself living here in this forest, you know.
Why did it scare you? Say it again.
It scared me because it was very powerful, and the implication of, you know, not getting married, having kids, or being willing to make all these seeming sacrifices in order to devote myself so fully to something, I found scary, but very moving. And so I was talking with one of the the people there who was a layperson like me, but had similar questions, at one time for himself. And he had consulted a monk, just like I spoke with the nuns. I spoke with them, and the lady said she had to get sober because she knew that I had issues. So she was dropping a hint to me that I should be clear on a decision like that, because that's a huge decision. And you can also make that decision when you're older, as a lot of women do. But my point was that the man told my friend, who's a man who was also thinking about, going forth. He said that he had a dream once. There was a monk who told him he had a dream. The monk had a dream where, when he was thinking of becoming a monk, going forth, where in the dream he wasn't a monk and he was terrified. It was a nightmare. And when he woke up, it was like, oh, because he was so called to do that. Like, it's, some people are called to live a life like that. Sure. Because by being celibate and by not having those distractions, they can see things that we can't, so if they're being of service, they're being of service. That's all I'm saying.
I just want to make one comment, and I don't know that it's I don't know that it's relevant to the main topics being discussed, but it's just a reply to something you said. And I think that commitment or devotion to anything is a form of self-sacrifice, whether it be being a monk, yes, or a nun, or following devoutly a profession, or being a professional skateboarder, whatever. It all requires some form of self-sacrifice.
That's an excellent point, because even just making a decision, you are now not doing all of the other possibilities. The focus and decisiveness is itself a sacrifice of everything else except what you're going to do. So that's a really good point, Nicholas.
That's just keeping it real. It's like the thing that I'm trying to get over is I want things to be painless. I really do. I go to a lot of lengths and it doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
Right. So I'm having to parent myself, though. And it's growth for me to hear what Nicholas is saying non-defensively.
Well, you're parenting yourself, because the rite of passage is the child becomes the parent of the woman or the man. You become your own parent. And that's actually part of the initiation process. I mean, someone looked at Voltaire once and said, life is hard. And he chortled back. He said, compared to what? So, I mean, you being your own mom, your own dad, both of them. I mean, that's where it's at. That's important.
There's a duality, which has the suffering of Christ on one end, and the bliss of the Buddha on the other end, and that's the spiritual plane. And so life, it's not that there's not pain in the Buddha's approach, okay? Because in the everyday life you can imagine the everyday life of a Tibetan was never easy. It's even it's even worse now, but I mean, it was never easy. And the idea that the Buddha had was that you could take yourself out of it. That's my idea of the red ball. There's your chaos in the world, which can be pain, it can be infidelity, it can be any kind and all kinds of things. But if you realize that spilled milk is chaos, and then you can step out of it, instead of letting that pain be subjective, you make it objective. It makes a big difference.
Even that 5 of cups, the don't cry over spilled milk, there are 2 more cups right behind it. I mean, and they're refillable.
Yeah.
There's a great quote. I believe it's from Marie-Louise von Franz, and I think that it's along the lines of talking about Mary and her kind of giving up her son. And I think it has to do with this idea of, like, your life is not really your own anymore once you really commit to something bigger than yourself. But I think the quote is something like, to say yes to life is to say yes to death. And I think that that's, I find that really moving, because it's,
Sure.
you know, it's you find what you love and you let it kill you.
Well, yeah, that's Bukowski, or no, Alan Watts or Bukowski, I think. Find what you love and let it kill you.
And that brings us back to the Queen of Cups, that she's still, and she is only observing that reflection in order to be what is true.
It's like that song. It's like that song, "Hero" by the Foo Fighters. I'm serious.
Actually, it is. Could you go ahead and quote the right
Yes.
lines?
There goes my hero. He's ordinary.
Right.
Following your intuition is a heroic act. No one's giving us permission to do it. You know, how do you know you're not crazy when you follow your intuition? How do you know? It doesn't say in the Bible, yes, Samantha, you should do this.
Well, one thing, when you have intuition, you do know that everybody else is crazier than you are.
Yeah, it's true.
They are?
Everybody.
Oh my God, thank God.
Each person is the sanest person in their world.
I thought it was me.
That's true.
Every person is the sanest
I want
person
to
in their
hear from
world.
Annabelle here, because Annabelle hasn't had a chance. How's your new house, Annabelle?
Did you know I was having a thought? The new place is fine. I've emptied 39 boxes. I've got about 100 to go.
Oh, good. That's the way it always is. That's the way I like it. That's how I
But
want it to be.
I do have kind of a question that's a little bubbling up, and it started with the Queen of Cups card also, which seems to be the most evocative tonight, which has to do with our ancestors, which has to do with with what we come from, with what we carry, because I know that that is in the present as well. One of the things that has not happened yet in my new home is that I haven't hung up the photographs of my grandmothers and my grandfathers, which I always have those pictures, and also the others from before them and after them. Is there something particularly in the court cards in this suit of cups, Jordan, that there's something to say that relates to the ancestors?
Yes, very definitely. And I'll reshare it if need be. But on the Queen of Cups, if you remember her throne, then on the right side of the throne, I believe there's a stone architectural column with a capital, like a Temple of Luxor lotus column capital. So that architecture would be the lineage from before that you sit on. It's the throne. Your throne is the shoulders of your ancestors that support you in life completely. So they're inert, but they're a perfect cornerstone to brace against in life. So that's a very good question.
I thought of something with the early. Did I interrupt you, Annabelle?
I was just saying, great. No, that's exactly what I needed to hear. Your throne is the shoulders of your ancestors. I was getting the feeling about that, but I didn't hear anything.
And now that I'm thinking about it, it's actually on the King of Cups. And I think one of his throne, let me just quickly share the screen and get that card up. I think the left part of the king's throne, I think, is covered. So there's that which is yet to occur, and that which you will put into as your lineage, which is on the unconscious, coming in from the left. Yeah, there we go. Look at the architectural column with the base and capital on the right, and then almost like this kind of lotusy cross section of the end of the throne. There's your architecture. That's moving out. That's in the future. It's like a prescient remembrance, like a future memory. So it's part of your throne. And in that sense, it's on your feminine, his left side. And then the other part of the throne is his. And so it's covered and we don't see what he is yet to do.
I thought of something with the cups. It was a comment I was gonna make a long time ago, and you said to hold it around the 2 to 3 to 4 cups. Can you show those cups?
Sure.
So you guys, I'm trying this material out on you guys.
You want the 2, the 3, or the 4? Where do you want to start?
I want you to start with 2, and then you're gonna go to 3,
Cool.
4, and 5. Okay, wait. 2. So 1 is like, okay, sorry, start at 3 actually, please, if you would.
There you go.
Okay, so this is being in community, right? Like, because
Right.
while you were sharing, I was thinking about individuation and how could I relate this to psychological individuation. So, okay, 3 is I know this card to mean conviviality, community, and of a celebratory moment of becoming part of something. So that's to me when you go from being alone to a social creature, or you go from your family of origin to school, or some other greater society, church, something like that. And then it goes to 4, and this is where, yeah, okay. So I was thinking, like, what does this mean? Because you were talking about how the cup in the air is like the Ace of Cups, and that's a blessing. And a lot of the descriptions I've read about this card are that the individual under the tree is petulantly just stubborn. Like they're stubborn in a way that makes no sense because they actually are being given a gift, but they can't be comforted. So to me, that had something to do with like 4, a darker side of 4, where it's like he's, the 4 point, his elbows and his knees, it's like there's a block between me and everyone else. I'm going to sit in my dirty diaper. I'm going to sit and I'm so sad. And I think it has something to do with moving away from 3, right? Because there's those 3 cups. The card before was 3. So to me, I think that has something to do with social isolation. Like if you're part of a community, you might not be accepted into that community, but it's an opportunity, if you would seize that other cup, to turn inside, right? Because we can respond to being alienated by trying to conform to that community. So we'll be socially accepted. A lot of people do that. Or we can rebel, or we can go inside. So then you move to 5, and this is the point I wanted to make. You move to 5. Yeah. And to me, this represents he didn't take the cup in the air. He didn't take the cups on the ground. So then he missed the opportunity for both, in that he's turning away from a cup that was handed to him, or whatever other opportunities he has, because he's, crying over spilt milk. And anyway, this is how I was going through the cards in my head. So I just wanted to share that.
Well, I'm glad you did, because I got an insight here that I hadn't thought about before when you said that. And this is the no fun card. Because look, dude, the party's over. Those 3 cups are empty. Here, go do some more work. It never ends. So he's sitting there like, well, I don't want to go back to work. I mean, but what happens is there's more psychological work to do. Here, there's a cup. There's more intuition. So it's get back to work, focus, discipline of the ritual kind of thing. So you bring up a great point there. There's a darker side to this card, and it would be that the party's over. It's not always fun. Here, go do some more work.
To me, 6 is when you go back to your childhood, right? So similar attitude in 4 and 5, and then 6. I've heard different interpretations of this, where one interpretation I read says that smaller person is actually a midget, is actually an adult woman who's just smaller. But anyway, most people think of this as childhood, right? So I think I've been told if you stay in this stage too long, psychologically, the person you're reading for, it could be that they're looking to the past with rose-colored glasses. Maybe they're not really seeing the dysfunction or the absent father because their family was so great and they'd rather live in the past, right? Or it's looking to the past as like making peace with the gifts you were given. Also, the cup can go either way. It could go from the woman to the child who's bigger, or the child to the other child. So to me, this is the first card other than since the Three of Cups, where there's some positive thing that can happen. And seven.
Well, yes, and there's the Trinity. If you notice the belts on the chalices or the cups, the three on the left are relatively similar, and then the one on the right starts to be different. And then you see the red shoe on her right male foot, breaking them. So the Trinity here comes into the unity again. The three becomes four, but is again unity in the fourth cup on the right side at the bottom.
I want to offer a perspective here that's a little bit different from what you guys have been saying, but it's something that's just occurring to me now, particularly with regards to the three transitioning to the four. And I guess it would be best to preface this by saying that rather than posing a question, what is desire? Because I think that it's necessary when we're talking about emotions and desire and the relational sphere and everything to examine the underlying fantasies. And obviously in the first card, or the first numbered card of this suit, there's the Hyros Gamos, this mystical marriage between man and woman.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like that really all forms of desire and longing are really at bottom kind of a desire for union. So transitioning from that thought to the three, it seems like the three is this garden of earthly delight. Like there's all of this ripe fruit on the vine. Mm-hmm. It's obviously a point where they're right about to harvest. I mean, maybe this is the celebration of the harvest.
Right.
It doesn't look like this gourd and these pears or whatever they are and the grapes could stand it much longer before they tip back into being less than ripe.
And the gourd's actually probably already harvested. It's like they've got it forth. And I think you're right on the money there.
Yeah, so it seems like this point of extreme bounty, and then it goes to the four where it's like maybe this guy is longing for more than the garden of earthly delights. Maybe he's truly longing for this union that really can't be found in the world of material pleasure. And it's like, the three in the preceding card seems like it has to do with fullness. And then in the four, it's like he's looking at these three cards like, I don't care about that. And then there's still another arm reaching out like, look, here's even more bounty. And he's still just like, I don't care.
And he's seen done that of the three of them. Right.
I want mystical union.
Okay, a couple of things here. One is, Jordan, you have an accolade from the YouTube channel, which is really enjoyed Jordan's very informative presentation tonight. Thank you.
You're welcome. I appreciate that.
Phoebe.
Thank you very much.
And we have a new mystery guest here, or two of them actually. We have Yoda and we have Lisa Del Rosario. And so, Lisa, welcome. It would be nice if you would tell us something about yourself or say hello.
Hello, thank you. I just got my tarot cards and I'm going through them. So this is all new to me, but as you're talking about the fourth, the cups.
Yes.
Four of Cups. My mind's taking me to astrology because that's more of what I understand. And anyways, that's where my mind is going. But I'm just absorbing right now, if you don't mind.
Oh, well, that's fine. We've put like how many hours? 50 hours, more than that. At least 50 hours on this YouTube channel in its own playlist. So you can start the tarot from the beginning.
Oh, thank you.
And listen to them.
And Liza, what astrological aspects come up for you with the Four of Cups?
Well, my intuition was it just brought me to that the IC, the subterranean
Mhm.
part of it, because, and then because, yeah, I just
The opposite
felt,
of the midheaven, the IC, right?
exactly. Well, it's the midheaven on the other side of the earth, right?
Right. It's exactly. So the IC is in opposition to the midheaven, but yes, the IC is the
Exactly.
midheaven on the dark side, on the night sky.
And exactly. And I just felt that this, I'm looking at my card, and the one cup that's being handed to the man sitting under the tree is like his ancestor offering some support to
It definitely can be that.
Yeah,
help him. That's what I was feeling when I was looking at this card.
Mhm.
well, and
Yeah.
also what's interesting, it was you have the 4 quadrants in astrology, and the IC coming to mind for you is really apt because it's in the night sky, the bottom
Right.
half of an astrological circle, whereas day sky planets are in the top, and that's where the midheaven is up off at an angle. So it's really interesting that you brought the IC up there, because that then dovetails into Nick's statement about look at this mystical union, and mystical union will be more about that IC that is at the base of an astrology chart. So really good, really good comment there.
Thank you.
Also, go ahead.
I'm a mystic. Yeah.
Good.
Good.
Yeah.
We're all
came to the
mystics
right
here.
place.
Yeah,
you
we're all
came to the
mystics
right
here.
place.
So,
And I'm such a weirdo.
well, we're all weirdos.
Yeah,
So,
Good.
He reminds me of the Braveheart scene where the Irish guy comes in. He's like, "It's Ireland. It's mine." And he goes through this whole thing, and they said, "You're a madman." And he goes, "Oh, I see. I've come to the right place."
That's awesome.
yeah.
And
That's perfect.
what this has to do with individuation based on what Lisa, is it Lisa or Liza?
It's Lisa. Don't let the Z fool you.
Okay, Lisa.
But yes, thank you.
Got it. Lisa, so that, what I project onto the card, having heard what you said, is our family passes down the coping mechanisms that worked for them. Sometimes they pass on the self-sabotage that still works for them, but in a sense that's coping, and I think part of our individuation is knowing what we need to do differently, because with the gifts there was also some type of dysfunction, or else why would we be here? Because like from an evolutionary standpoint, whatever they messed up had to be corrected. That's what I think. And just like
that's healing trauma.
Hopefully my kids will be less traumatized and more functional than I am. I think maybe that's what they want in every generation or whatever, but that you just helped me piece something together with that refusal, that no, it's like a toddler saying no, because they're learning how to be themselves and say, maybe I don't want to heal the way you're healing. I don't want to be consoled with whatever tool you're giving me. I want to go find my own.
I just want to say you guys have met your quota for individuations this evening.
Oh, he kept track.
Right.
You win, Nick.
Lisa, what I
$10.
wanted you to be aware of is that these sessions that we're doing to try to have a depth knowledge of the tarot is in one playlist from the beginning. And there is a separate playlist where I'm teaching divination with the tarot, which has its flaws, but nonetheless, if you want to learn how to do a divination with the tarot, that's a start.
That's awesome. Thank you.
It's an art, not a science, right?
Yes. And it's a science.
And it's a science.
Right.
It's both and.
Yeah.
Well, that's in ancient times, that's magic. Both and all the time.
Right. Because scientists who only understand the logos can't feature the psychology, and especially Jungian psychology, because Jungian psychology is about the eros, and so it's the other side.
Right.
It's where life actually is. Okay, if you look at in your room, everything that's sitting in your room, other than other people, is a product of the logos.
Mm-hmm.
We need logos perfectly to create anything we purchase and put in our room with us. But none of it is alive. It's only eros that's alive.
Well, and even the presentation tonight becomes logos. And if I helped anyone
Absolutely.
go deeper anywhere, the depth of the tube, the cave, the dig, the hole, the vessel that I made is now logos. Please go deeper from there. I mean, we all build on each other. So that I
That's
hope
right.
that there
So
were
this
some
video
nuggets.
is,
Yeah.
and all those videos I just described are logos now, okay,
Right.
because they're fixed.
But also, can I go ahead, please?
Yeah, go ahead.
But also, just like tarot cards, you know, I have no way of proving this, of course not. You know, it's a science that can't be proven if it is a science, right? Like we develop a relationship with objects. If they mean something to you, if you give me something that used to belong to you, it'll have an essence of skip, right? Or even if it didn't belong to you and I think, oh, that's a lovely gift. Now I have some more emotional attachment to the object. I think that's what happens in tarot. It's like we're all projecting our individual understanding onto these cards. So the meaning in 1,000 years, if one of the images is the same, it'll be the precipitate of all the meaning, all the collective meaning any individual has ever heard about their card, including what they've put on the card. So if tarot works, I think it has something to do with that.
So if I give you a card, that's logos. But if I tell you what it means, and you keep it, and you're remembering what Skip said it means, that's energy. That's talking about the energy that's in that card.
Right.
Because it's relational. We're all having these relationships, even in this class.
Right.
I don't even like calling it a class. I like calling it a jam. We're brought together by tarot.
Right.
Well,
by
it's
these objects that are not alive.
Right. And so
but it's part of it's like a part of the matrix.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's a living matrix or an evolving matrix.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
But the matrix is still logos. The matrix is solid.
Yeah, I look at the matrix like the skeleton. It's like an invisibridge. You can't see it, but you use it all the time. But the bones are logos. I mean, there's marrow inside, but the bones that have ossified, they don't heal except from within. I mean, so they're nourishing themselves, but in a sense, that's that structure, the inner logos, as it were, with all this soft, fleshy almond fruit, you know, then the nut inside.
What are you? I don't know what you're saying. I like the
your
word
skeleton is your structure, and then like when I use the example of an almond, it's a nut that grows inside of what looks almost like an apricot. I mean, for example, don't ever eat a peach pit.
So somehow, Jordan, even though you have taken your image off the screen here, it's still locked into YouTube. I don't know why.
Okay, let me.
Okay,
actually,
no, wait a minute. I see why, because it's. I'm looking at the wrong part of the session.
Okay,
that's why. Okay, and so. So to all those that are in the UK, thank you very much for being here. It's very late for you. And thanks also to Raquel Fonseca from Brazil, who already left because it's already 12:30 in the morning.
She had an early day, she said.
Zero dark 30 for
Right.
her. And um, so anybody else want to chime in anything before we hang up? Nick, you're on next week for the swords, right?
Good to go.
I'd like to thank you all. I love the comments you guys chimed in on. To me, it fleshed out some things I was working on. And in the whole scheme of things, I kind of used like one partial little piece of thread. You know, there's just so much to talk about. And so I really appreciate you guys chiming in, because I feel like it made the presentation so much more robust.
Yeah. Who did we agree would do the Pentacles?
Pentacles.
That Raquel?
Mhm.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Okay,
that's
right,
Raquel.
because right.
I do have one final comment, and I withheld it earlier, and then it came back up, and now it's here again. So I feel like I have an obligation to say it. You know, I don't do tarot readings, as I've said several times. So I don't know to what extent my opinion on the topic will be valid, but I'll offer it anyways. But I would say that on the one hand, if somebody were to ask me, is this bullshit? I think unless, I think it's important to exercise a healthy dose of skepticism.
Yeah.
I'd probably say yes, that it is. And I think it's also a testament to any real tradition. There are always dissenters within the tradition that really test the structure itself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for example, you know, I see people on YouTube talking about the Chesapeake Bay Bridge behind Skip, and I'm sure the engineers that came up with that, you know, tested the structure several times before they actually implemented the building of it. They didn't just test it and say, we have faith that this thing will be the best.
Yeah, it took 20 years actually. They're two spans.
Yeah. So, and I think that is true for pretty much all things. You know, they have to
Right.
go through. They're forged in the flames of extreme trial.
Right.
But also, the thing that I would say is that, you know, we all have magical beliefs, and no matter how rational people say they are. I mean, for example, we all believe in time. And there's no real reason, apart from it being a human construct, that we all follow blindly to posit the existence of time. And you know, I think that it's really interesting that people would say, is this bullshit, but also still be engaged in so many other things that can't really be quantified.
Yeah, I'm gonna a little bit take exception with you, Nick, because while I don't believe that there's a wooey woo aspect to tarot in that sense of magic, I do believe in the tarot. I know that it works, and I know why it works, but it's not magical. It's more nature's the magic agent.
I mean, I completely agree with you, and I don't. That's not necessarily what I'm saying. I'm just saying I think everybody engages in their own form of magical thinking. So
surely.
Picking shoes is just cherry picking in a way that's just highly irrational to me.
Well, I'll chime in that when people say they don't believe in tarot, oh, that stuff's bullshit. I'm like, you know, that makes two of us. I don't believe in it either, any more than I believe in my range or my fridge. But I use them and tarot every day to nourish myself because they work. You know,
they're tools.
They're tools.
First tarot reading I ever got as a teenager, I was more like, show me. I didn't reveal a whole lot to the person. I paid for it, of course. Like I went in, but I wanted to see. I was going in with skepticism. Now here I am years later, been going to this, you know, and it's just, it's more like, for me, it's like an attraction, honestly. It's like I can't stay away from it.
Right.
But when I was a kid, I had not read a book. I took out my mom's cards because they were just telling me stories as clear as reading Grimm's fairy tales. I didn't get to books until I was a teenager. I would just look at the cards and tell me stories. So I came about it backwards the other way. And to me, in my mid-20s, I'm like, I need to get back to that. All this learning stuff is getting in the way. you know, and then in my 30s, I went back to read everything under the sun. I mean, so it's both and it works. It does really work.
Well, and the question and the point is that it works without magic. In other
Right.
words, you know, the standard thing that I say is that I can go into an auditorium with 1,000 people in it and throw the cards across the stage and read directly off the stage with no layout.
Right.
And everyone in the room will think I read for them. But the secret is that everybody heard a different reading.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Everybody heard a different reading. And the reason they do hear a different reading is that all of these things are in hooks in our psyche. And so if any of us see the Empress card and we say something about mother, well, everybody in the room's got a mother, and half of the people in the room have a problem with their mother one way or another, right? And so the people that don't have a problem with their mother will not hear the part about mother that I read, but the people that have a problem with their mother or an issue with their mother will hear that part. And then
well, well-adjusted, well-adjusted
interesting.
writer, you know, let's take Stephen King. Let's say you give him that and you say the mother, and well, he's going to go, oh, I better check my source material, because the mother of his work, his creativity is where he's going, not with an issue with his mom, you know, and so everyone will hear
everybody hears something different.
Yeah. I believe they're like container, that the tarot is a container, a very sophisticated and refined container. And what the more we engage and allow the we space between the reader and the, you know, the one and the other to open up, then there's an intelligence in the field that arises and speaks.
While I was working on this presentation, I got down one of my rabbit holes, and I started going, oh, I'll do a celebration of the majors and how they are each a cup and what does their vessel hold. And I stopped and went, copy, paste into another document, get back to work, I mean, get on focus, stay on topic. And what it was that idea for another blog, for another book, got poured out of just working on the cups, on the vessels. So you're right, they all are containers.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you everyone for being here. I'm going to call this quits, and Nick, we'll look forward to your presentation next week.
Check your message.
Lisa, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We actually start about 2.5 hours before when you came into the session.
Oh my gosh. I thought it started at 7.
It starts,
7 Eastern time.
7 U.S. Eastern time.
Oh.
You should watch it on YouTube. You can read it.
I thought it started at 8.
Well, the
live feed
YouTube part of it does start at 8, right? The live stream starts at 8. But we've been chatting now for almost 4 hours.
Oh, so you're on Zoom since 7?
Yes.
Yeah, we get together and cut up for an hour.
You guys are
troopers.
Start.
Yeah, we have shenanigans for an hour before we start.
Okay.
I'm in California.
Okay, so it'll start for you at
2.
At
4.
At 4 for the pregame, and then at 5 for the live stream.
Okay, so
we meet an hour ahead of time to socialize and to talk about our approach that we're going to have going in.
Okay, so can I share about the 6 of Cups, what I felt when I looked at that card?
Okay.
I saw my cup runneth over, and I saw service oriented. I saw the 6th house or Virgo qualities in this on that card, because and I do my best to not place judgment on people's size or any about anything, but this person was of shorter stature and seeming timid. And I just felt this one person was providing service. Yeah.
And giving a gift to increase their strength and their stature and their height.
Exactly.
Yeah, there was a definitely a direct connection of nourishment there. Good catch there.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for the comment.
Yep. So feel free to join. There's lots of videos to look at that we've done already. But next week we will be talking about the swords, and Nick is going to hold forth.
I'm excited.
And,
Sweet.
So
Look
unlike other weeks where Nick took over the session with what he wanted to get off his chest, the next week it's all his.
Nice.
Any teasers, any trailers for before we see the full length film?
No.
You get nothing.
Good call.
Fair enough.
So ask me again tomorrow, Principal.
So should I show up at 8 or should I show up at 7?
Show up at 7.
Show up
till
at 7.
then,
We cut up. I mean, it's
and you'll hear what we talk about the YouTube audience never hears.
Oh, it gets wild.
I
Yeah.
see.
And
it's good stuff.
right.
We're gonna grill some brats. It's gonna be a good time.
Yeah, you know, that's how I got kicked out of the theater last week. I went to a movie. It had been so long, and they kicked me out for bringing my own food. I mean, my argument was I haven't had a barbecue in years.
You're supposed to hide it.
Yeah, you hide it. So speaking of good movies, we have seen several good movies lately. Okay, one of them is called The Dig. Okay, and The Dig has beautiful cinematography, absolutely gorgeous. And the other one is A Call to Spy, which is about the first women spies that were recruited by MI6 and then the CIA. And so a little known fact, the main or one of the CIA's training bases is called Virginia Hall, and it's named after one of the women that this movie is about. And it's a fascinating story,
The Dig?
No,
Pardon?
A Call to Spy.
A Call to Spy.
Yeah, it's called A Call to Spy. It's on Netflix, I think. It might be on Prime, but anyway, it's very, very interesting. And Virginia Hall went into World War II with a prosthesis leg. She had already lost her leg, not because of the war, but she served as a spy throughout World War II and became the first woman agent of the CIA after the war.
Disarming. Disarming.
Yeah, and
people underestimated her because of her prosthesis that she had.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
She was one of the best. I mean,
well, she was the best, and she was landed because she had an artificial leg when she went back into France. She first had to escape from France because they had made her. They knew who she was, and they were trying to capture her. So she had to escape into Spain by walking over the Pyrenees on a wooden leg. Okay, and so she got herself back to the UK, and then because she had the wooden leg, they couldn't parachute her into France, so they landed her on a PT boat. And in the 10 weeks before D-Day, she recruited 3 battalions of French underground to assist with the D-Day operations.
mm-hmm.
And so she was just an amazing person. And so there's more to it. I'm going to talk about part of it because it showed up in my art tomorrow night with Colleen, because we're going to be talking about how to hear yourself, how to pay attention to yourself. And so I did some work that relates to Virginia Hall and to Nora Khan, who was the first, or maybe the only, Muslim woman to be awarded the George Cross and the Croix de Guerre during World War II.
Right.
So,
I know that this information is available on the web. However, I have tried to join more than once this group with Colleen. What time is it? I know
it is at 4 p.m. tomorrow. It's
my time,
your time.
California.
4 p.m. California time, 7 p.m. my time.
Okay.
And it's in all the announcements that I send out. Pardon?
Thank you.
If you want me to give you the link right now, I will give you the link.
Yes, please.
All right, just a moment. Let me find it. The impossible takes just a little bit longer. Hold on.
We'll have the dig too, right here. Skip will dig for the link.
Yeah.
Can you talk about the group that you were hosting about the book on Jung, the dead, and what was it called?
Lament of the Dead?
Yes.
Lament of the Dead, yes.
Yes.
It's Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern time.
Okay. So do we get a link too for that?
Yes, it comes out in all my announcements.
Yeah, look for Wednesday 1 p.m. Eastern time, and then go up to the
actually that doesn't. Actually,
no, I haven't seen that. You sent me one.
Right.
Oh, that's right.
I am sorry. That doesn't come out in all the announcements, but this is the link for Colleen tomorrow. That's the link and the passcode. And folks that are watching on YouTube, you can find it here. So that's a link for Colleen tomorrow at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern time. And Colleen tomorrow is going to do an open studio. Yeah. And okay, I'll just very quickly show you an example because of what she's going to teach us to do. All right, so the idea is that you have to, you want to hear yourself. You want to know what yourself is telling you. Okay, and so you have to get communication with yourself. And so one idea is an artist decides they're going to paint a picture of a lamp and intentionally paints a picture of a lamp. Well, that's not what yourself wants to do. Yourself wants to do whatever yourself wants to do. And so what you have to do is learn to hear yourself tell you what it wants to do. Okay, because that's the boss. That's your boss, actually. And so you want to have communication with yourself, which is the God image or God or whatever you want to call it. You want to have communication with that for your individuation. And so on the first of, well, I didn't get the right image up first. Let me just get the right image up. Okay, so on the 1st of February, I had a dream, and this was the dream. Okay, so dreams come from the self. It was a very short dream, like two seconds, but I saw this image. Okay, I saw this image. And so I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to talk about tomorrow, which is about called a spy. But what I am going to do is show you a different one.
Oh, cool. You did all of these, Skip?
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, so the trick is this. Here, I first took that image, and then the idea for Colleen is you take a straight line, and then you draw another line that doesn't like straight lines. So the way I do it is when I have a second line, then I can cross. So in here, if you're seeing are you seeing my cursor?
Yes.
Okay, so in here, I've now made a double line here. And so this line can cross under that double line. And here it can, again, cross under that double line and again. Okay, and vice versa. So I create this interlinked matrix, if you will. But I have no idea what myself is trying to tell me. I just did this entirely randomly. And I looked at it and I said, okay, what does that mean? And I got nothing. Okay, so I said, okay, this is about the feminine. And so I put pink in the center. That's actually pink in my colors. And this is actually a little bit late, but I said to myself, okay, I haven't done red lately. So I started to color in the spaces with red. And what I found out was, wow, there's a lot of red here. Okay. And what that brought to mind, and this is coming from myself, was a phrase in the movie Top Gun called, which is no way out while you're in it. This is one of the lyrics in Top Gun, no way out while you're in it. And so I said, wow, all that red, no way out when you're in it. This must be about war. Okay. So I said, okay, this is about war, but it's something about the feminine and war. And this aqua blue is the masculine, which is defending the feminine, right? So that's what it is about at that stage, but I'm still not entirely understanding. I know my image is going to be about war, but how? And so I kept going. And so here's,
That's really nice.
after I'd filled in some other colors. And so what I found out, what I filled in more of the feminine, was that the feminine is all around. And so I'm seeing feminine above, and that's wisdom, Sophia, and there's feminine everywhere. And that is a reminder of my dictum that when the men destroy civilization, it's the women that rebuild it. Okay. And so that's where I am at this point, that, okay, it's about war. Here's my war, all the blood around, but the feminine surrounds it all and rebuilds civilization. Okay. And so then I finished it. And in this version of it, after I finished all the colors in, you almost can't see the red.
Right.
And it's really emphasizing the role of the feminine in warfare. Okay, which, so the colors represent ideas, right? So the red represents blood, the pink represents the feminine, the aqua represents immature masculine, the dark represents mature, individuated people, the green represents nature, the blue represents it represents older men. Okay. And so the blood gets completely surrounded by the feminine. And if you think about it, okay, after both world wars, who rebuilt the society? It was the women. So this is a confirmation. Myself is giving me a confirmation of my own dictum here, but that's how it emerged. And so that's a process that Colleen is going to teach in detail in tomorrow's lesson. Okay.
I love how your diagram from the dream was so clear and simple with the line drawing, and then when you painted the red, I didn't even notice it. It was just gone, as if it went away during your process. And then in that 2 before the end, it's like, oh, it came back. It came back strong. And it's interesting that with just the red, it disappeared. But then that symbol you initially drew from your dream was so present and prominent in the last piece, where then with the other colors that are more prominent than just the blood, they provided the structure, and your image came right back to the focus of the eye.
Right. So anyway, so this image that I just showed you is only for me. I'm not expecting any of you to have it mean anything to you. Okay, right. But it's my way of communicating with my psyche. It's a way, okay, which I'm being taught by Colleen, who's 90 years old, but she's smart as a whip, right? And so you can look at some of her recent videos that we've done on the homepage of the YouTube channel, because we've done some other work on the mark of the self, and this is mark of the self. But now she's going to teach the whole thing from a Jungian perspective over 4 sessions. So
right.
The 4 sessions are tomorrow, February 23rd, March 9th, and March 23rd.
Right.
And
how long are the sessions?
I beg your pardon?
How long are the sessions?
2 hours. And it's and there's no charge. And
you just need an 18 by 24 newsprint pad and some oil pastels.
Yeah, the ideal is to have a newsprint, 18 by 24, and some oil pastels. But if you don't have that, come with pencils and some blank paper, and for a start. And then after you see the first session, you'll know what to get, and also you'll have an idea of where we're going with it. But it's an idea.
This is tomorrow?
Yes, tomorrow.
4 o'clock California time.
Yes, ma'am.
Whoa.
And that link, Lisa, was in, I think Skip put it into the chat.
Okay.
Yeah,
I took an image of it. Yeah.
Okay, and go ahead.
I'm so grateful to be here.
You're welcome.
So 100 years after Carl Jung wrote his Red Book.
Yes. Yes.
I experienced a curiosity, but I'm not comfortable sharing that right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I connected. I met this group through Becca Tarnas.
Mm-hmm.
And am I going down a rabbit hole?
No. You had a numinous experience, which is what we've all had, probably most of us that are in this group. And I certainly had a huge one in 1993. I was possessed for 8 months while I wrote a novel, and it took me 21 years to appreciate what it meant. I had put it away for years, and it was only when the Red Book came out that I said, oh, this is what happened to me. Now I better pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had been possessed for 8 months by my anima, which means that I constellated an archetype. And with archetypes, once they start to play, it's like a dry riverbed. As long as it's a dry riverbed, it's not going to do anything. But the tarot cards are like that too, the major arcana. As long as they're dry, it's dry. But if you put water in it, it's going to play. It's like a record in a jukebox. So once you start that record, there's no stopping it until it's over. Okay. And so the perfect example of this is the archetype of mother. Once you're a mother, you're a mother for the rest of your life. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Right. And so the archetype, once you become a mother, the archetype of mother plays through you and you can't stop it. Okay. Now, in my case, because I wasn't becoming a mother, I was experiencing my anima. I basically experienced the autobiography of my anima from 1962 to 1993 in an 8-month period.
Right. And that was my last slide too. I cut it short, but 1992 was the Temple and Man series in oil, and that was deep, dark, chthonic. And I don't know if anyone should see this, but I'm thinking. And then, I finally put it out when I hear, oh, Jung did the same thing. Made it okay, and I didn't feel so crazy anymore.
Right. So anyway. The reason you're in this group and why Becca sent you to us is because we've all had luminous experiences in one way or another. And the tarot and astrology all are a piece of this part of the world, okay, which is esoterica, but when you say esoterica, it makes it sound like it's not real, but it's quite real. And as Jung
it's metaphysical.
Said, metaphysical. Well, it's metaphysical, and metaphysics is real. Okay. Right. And so, Jung said quite clearly in answer to Job, what most people don't understand is that I believe the psyche is real. Okay. And if you want to see something on this, you can go watch my video called Finding the Living God. Okay. And if you go to the homepage of this YouTube channel and go down to a thumbnail that looks like a church, I gave this talk in a church last year, a couple of years ago, and so let's see. I'll find it for you here.
I need to find numinous, please.
Numinous is mysterious, like sacred. It's an experience that's bigger than you are. Let's say. It takes over your life. Okay. Here I have the link to it, which I can send you because I spent 2 hours talking about it this afternoon with someone who had a similar experience. Okay, so here it is.
Thank you.
Okay, it's called Finding the Living God, and that's the link. And so you can, before we hang up here, you can save it. And then go look at it, and that'll put you on the right track of what we're talking about, I think.
Well, I had a good time tonight. Thank you, guys.
So did I, especially at the end. So thank you for coming, Lisa. I was pretty silent most of the evening, but which is unusual for me. But
I want to hear.
I just thought I had you speechless.
How did everyone find this? I want to know.
Well, actually, I found it because Skip. I went to a participatory imagination lecture that Dr. Becca Tarnas did.
But how did you find that?
I was on. I looked up Participation Mystique on WordPress on my blog, and because it's a Jungian piece, and then she came up, and so I subscribed to her blog, and then I watched, and I went, "Who's this Skip Conover dude? Who is he? Her moderator?" And then I'm like, "Oh no, he's got his own show." Oh, I see. So I clicked, and
Okay.
I laughed.
So for Lisa, here's
Yeah.
Becca Turnus's visit to us last August.
I'm just saying some things are so strange that it's like they had to happen. Because I have no idea how I found you guys. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm speaking from a feeling place and being hyperbolic, but seriously, I don't know. I don't join things like this. So I'm just curious how everyone has some story.
The serendipity of the synchronicity works.
Yeah, Annabelle can tell you all about
Yeah,
that.
Annabelle, I want to know how Skip,
Every
I'm not-
single card, right?
what's that?
I was at that Becca's talk.
Oh, you were? Okay.
I was, yeah.
Okay, so anyway, Becca told me about Jorge Ferrer, and I've been trying to get him into the wisdom path, but unfortunately he had to cancel this past Sunday, so we'll be having her professor, Jorge Ferrer, in I think late April or early May. I'm going to find out tomorrow because I'm going to go have a consultation with my surgeon, and as soon as I know when my hip replacement is going to be,
You can go there too.
I will arrange the time with Jorge, but I didn't want to set up the thingy until I knew when my surgery is going to be, which is going to be probably in early May is what I guess. But
I'm glad that's getting taken care of, because I'm, for mental security, right? It's better to feel like something's going to be handled like that, right?
oh yeah, I mean,
No, he's going to be the $3 million man. He's halfway there.
I've really gotten my money's worth out of my Marine Corps career. That's
yeah,
because I have health care for life from my career in the Marines, and it's a good thing because in the Marines you're a ground pounder, and so I've had to have 2 joint replacements already, and now the 3rd one.
So if you hear me call Skip Steve, it's because I saw him run a mile in a minute.
Yeah, something.
And I know he's had the other $3 million done.
Right.
Did Enriquez ever respond to you?
No.
He responded to me regarding a reading or a class with him, and I never responded back. But
okay, well,
I had a conversation via email with him, and I thought he was going to. I'll ping him back and remind him. See if it
okay,
helps.
well, that would be good. You're better known than I am, but he's certainly welcome anytime. And we're talking about Enriquez, who is a famous tarot aficionado in New York City. He's written a book.
there's a documentary called Tarology that you can get, I think, on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
And it's about an hour long if you're interested. And then there's also a book called Tarology. I didn't read the whole book.
Well, I'll see if I can get him, because to me it feels like it's going to be like having a French surrealist like Andre Breton right here amongst us, because he's such a great character, and his noggin is super agile.
Yeah. So we'll see how that works out. But anyway, good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Take care now.
Thank you.